Greetings all, and welcome everybody. I'm trusting you can hear me okay. Having a few technical issues with our usual facilitators' connection, so I will start the class today. Hopefully, once that gets sorted, then he'll be back on. I'll try and run and see what questions are being put into the chat, or where you raise your hand. So welcome everybody. So what we're doing today, we're just finishing off Freaks and the Perfect Creature, just a few more things to go through on that, and then we'll get into Mother, the Circle of Existence, which is the class topic for today. Obviously, feel free to ask questions throughout. You are sort of tuned in, I would say, to another Wu-Sabat Outformation class brought to you by All Eyes in Egypt, Midlands and the North, which you can see on the screen in front of you. So we're going to get started now. And so what I'll probably just want to check, because we are having a few technicals, just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. So can you hear me clearly over the Om chant? So I'm just launching a short poll now if you want to answer in the affirmative or the negative. So can you hear me okay over this background Om chant? Yeah, so can I be heard clearly? Yeah, so you might need to swipe left or right on your device, just so that you can see the whole screen. Okay, seems like you can. And the second check I'm just going to do is, can you see the screen or the presentation on the screen okay in front of you? So can you see that clearly? And again, you may need to swipe left or right on your device just so that you can hear, just so you can see the screen and what device you're on. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds to answer that question. Okay, seems most can. If you can't, then give us some feedback in the chat. Just jump back. Right, okay. In cultural fashion, or Sabaean cultural fashion, what we're going to do is start off the class with a positive prayer of affirmation known as Partak Yud. So I'm going to say that in our Sabaean language and then translate that into English. Abdoi kale namazurat ufakur amekasam un empa paut anuki jawef pa ashuk empa paut Wu-Kale ashuk kawun jawef neya anuki kasam un empa paut Wu-Pa paut kawun kasam un em neya anuki wahu ameh pa paut Wu-Pa paut kawun wahu ameh neya nakuk kadur najuh ameh kasam un empa paut Wu-Habub ameh mushachas un Nakuk kadur kawan kaleh pafef nakuk tayur jawef pa paut ameh waseh ameh tayarni kawun lakei bakoy jawef pa paut anuki abed bin afashni pa paut kawun anuki pa paut kadur nakuk kadur paut amul nakuk amul. So that was known as Partak Yud, the affirmation, and we began by saying, begin all prayers and thinking as a part of the all expanding, I should say. And we said, I am in the divine love of the all expanding. and all divine love is in me. I am a part of the all-expanding, and the all-expanding is a part of me. I am one as the all-expanding, and the all-expanding is one as me. I can succeed as a part of the all-expanding and fail as an individual person. I can be all that I want in the all-expanding, as long as my want is to stay in the all-expanding. I am never by myself. The all-expanding is, I am. The all-expanding can, I can. The all-expanding does, I do. So that was Partak Yud from our Sabaic culture, starting off the class with positive vibes and thinking and connecting to our ancestors. So if you join us on the Zoom platform for the first time today, what we are looking at here, or what you can see on the screen, is some instructions. So to your left, you've got your audio settings there. So if you need to make some adjustments at any point throughout this session, then you do so by selecting that option. And then we've got 3 interactive options. We've got chat, raise hand, and question answer. So if you've got messages which are not questions, you can put them in the chat area. It could be feedback, different types of things which are not questions, and select everyone as your distribution option and then place that in the chat area. As I say, we're having a few technical problems, but hopefully our facilitator should be able to respond when you place anything in the chat. You've got 2, this is an interactive session, so it is a class, so you've got, by all means, don't sit there in ignorance. Please ask questions to myself, Nabab Kaknihes, as the Madrasa Mulkan, or the student teacher for today. So you've got the option to raise your hand, and so that enables you to come through live and ask your question direct to myself as a student teacher for today. Once we ask you to do that, you'll see a message pop up on your screen asking you to unmute yourself. You need to do so we can hear you speak. If you've dialed in, then those options are slightly different. So it's *9 to raise your hand, and then when prompted, *6 to unmute yourself. What we do ask is, once we unmute you, you've got the ability to unmute yourself and mute yourself at will. So just simply mute yourself back once you've asked your question, as not to disturb the rest of the class that's ongoing. Now, if you don't want to come through live, then the other way to ask a question is to type it by pressing the Q&A button, and then that will come in, and then, as I say, we will, or you can read the question on your behalf, and then I'll answer that question accordingly, or the facilitators will read it on your behalf, but it may be me today if the sound issues can't be sorted out. So feel free, as I say, if you don't understand something or it's not clear, better that you ask it and not sit there, as I say, in ignorance and confusion. No matter, say, the most important thing is that you go away and learn something from today's session. So no poll questions today, so I'll skip that because we've got on a bit of a time pressure today. Now, importantly, I'll do a short introduction, quite a long one, in the last session. So if you don't know who we are, then please refer to that or previous classes, or a part 1 of any of the previous kind of classes. Will give you a nice introduction. So I'm going to keep it shorter today so that we can get into the class topics. So we've got a couple. I'm going to finish off the last one and then get into the new one for today, just to stay on track and stay on schedule. So importantly, we are, as I say, United Sabians Worldwide is what we're known as. Classes to you are brought to you by All Eyes in Egypt, Midlands and North. Now, the founder of our nation, organisation, I suppose, who gave birth to us, or this mindset as Sabians, known as Musbatu in the Sabaic language, is a person by the name of Dr Malachi Z, Dr.York Okran, as you can see on the screen. They are also known to us as Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, or Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, English transliteration, and affectionately referred to as the master teacher. So I may say master teacher throughout this class, referring to this particular individual, and we are student teachers under the master teacher. So at certain times you may hear me say we, and that's in reference to the fact that, not that I'm going crazy, but the fact that we, i.e. all student teachers around the world, teaching this doctrine as a collective, as part of Drusut Tashrak. But what's important, and touching upon, I suppose, a little bit at the second part of the class today, is always starting off. We are a matriarchal culture, and it's very important to know or understand the genetics of people who are considered to be teachers. Some refer to them as leaders, maybe incorrectly, who start off organizations or whatever. So what is the root seed? Where do they come from, etc.? And we obviously are blessed master teacher's presence by way of a woman of the name, or Sacred Femi-nine by name of Mary Dr.York. We just celebrated her birthday, or excuse me, the anniversary of her birthday on March 10th, and many celebrations or different celebrations were going on around the world just to acknowledge the presence of this great individual. So Fatima Maryam, she was also known, born March 10th, and is one of the, or through that line is where Dr. Malachi Z York was born in Takoradi, West Africa in Ghana. So part of the Iwe tribe is through his mitochondrial line, which is part of the Akan tribes in West Africa in Ghana. And this is her, obviously she's now transitioned, and this is her in the clan mother attire. And now that's been passed on to her daughter, Mutpatauret Atum Reye, or Kimamtat Mutpatauret Atum Reye. So she now occupies that position as her daughter, carry on that kind of mitochondrial link, take on the role of the clan mother and other titles that she holds today. So in us coming back into who we are as opposed to the what, we're getting back and becoming matriarchal. And nature, the forces of nature, are shifting us that way. In fact, our spiritual doctrine that we're teaching today, Wu-Sabat, is feminine in origin. You understand? So, excuse me, when the forces of nature, I suppose, come together in that regard to birth appropriate teachers to come and restore the race, or restore our story back to its pristine purity, so to speak, or bring it back to actual facts, understanding the master's secrets, excuse me, and giving us the guidance in the form of Tarak, then this is what happens in and around this time, certainly at the end of the 24,000 year cycle. So Mary Dr.York, very important Sacred Femi-nine, and the mother of who we refer to as the master teacher. Now, his father is, as you see on the screen, Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi, born at 1922, and unfortunately was assassinated in 1970. So his link to the Dongolawi tribe in Sudan is part of this royal family in Sudan, obviously roots there today, and links back, as I say, to excuse me, his great-grandfather, Asayid, you see on the screen there, Mohammed Ahmed Al-Mahdi. Now, he married a Ghanaian woman, Mula, who he married and gave birth to, you see on the screen, Asayid Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi. So, as well, from on his mother's side, although we know there's no, what's what I'm looking for, there's no hereditary link from father to son, it's always through the mitochondrial line, but there was a Ghanaian link through this side of the family also, as well as a Sudanese link, which also takes us back to pre-dynastic ancient Egypt, as they record it or classify it as. Yes, and so to Napata, Meroe, as they say, Meroe, I say Meroe, but some say Meroe. So back to our pre-dynastic, or the real, let's say, Kadem Makmat, ancient Egyptian link, understood. So, very important line there, specifically chosen, as I say, to birth a teacher from amongst us, from our own race, or in our own race, to raise and teach our own race, or as I say, if we upgrade the terminology, planetary nation is another word for race. Now, in ancient Egypt, as I say, or ancient times, and to all races, as I say, are sent teachers of various different descriptions, specifically, as I say, to connect those races with their own creators or ancestors, and what you, I suppose, are calling religion is the method or way in which they connect. Understood? And they're what one may classify as their ascension pathway, in order to, as I say, connect their genes to what they are supposed to be growing into, if, as I say, they have the apparatus, as we do, to live past and beyond the life of the physical body. Now, in order to achieve that, we're not looking at archaeologists or paleontologists. Yes, our connection is to the mental reservoir. And so in order to understand have actual facts about the past, present, and what is to take place in the future, they birth teachers from amongst us, and they use a vehicle or a vessel which is referred to as the Amun Nabab Akhtar. Now, the ancient Egyptians referred to that being or vessel or vehicle that allowed their ancestors to speak through as Thahutwi or Tahuti. Some know popular as, known in different names in many cultures, but this is a vehicle or vessel that allows our ancestors to communicate that which we need to know in this day and time. So not only is the religion, so what you would call religion, word in Sabaik is Za'am, and it translates as opinion or viewpoint. That is necessary, I suppose, in this day and time, but it's a way to convey the necessary information that we have lost through all that we have been through as a people, and whoever else is interested and respects our culture, that we say is targeted at us and designed for us. And even the vehicle and the vessel, the genetic composition of that individual is specifically designed, as I say, to target the nature of what we've become, as opposed to what we originally were created to be, because we've had many interceptions in our genes, some willfully, some deliberate, unwanted, forcibly changed, and particularly with the kidnapping of our people, famously 1600, slavery down to the year 2000, if you count the 400 years, generations around about 100 years. So 4 generations down, or 1600, a hybrid was created from off of the original called the Negro. So that Negro was, it looked like us, but obviously because of the interception with the Caucasian into our genes in many ways forcibly done, then that created a new being, almost in a sense, a Negro who looked like us but had their mindset. And so this is something that still is unraveling itself today. And so, as I say, a being that could deal with all of our natural, maybe supreme divine nature, but also all of the other stuff that have been mixed into our genetics, interceptions with Anunnaki genes along the way, as well as obviously in this latest interception with the Muadamu or the Adamites into our genes. This would cause, as I say, disruption and affect our ability to unify mentally and also physically. So a special being was needed in this day and time, designed to be able to deal or teach or bring this science of Wu-Sabat to our people in this day and time in the form of a teacher. And I say that's known as an Amun Nabab Akhtar, who the Egyptians referred to as Tahuti. Now, the first combination to deal with the religious schools, because we had gone through a process of Wu-Sabat was brought to us in the beginning, dealing with sort of actual facts, in that context, but it was too heavy for the people at that time. We wanted religion. So in order to not be called a liar, he said, I came giving you one, so you would learn to want what I really came to give. And so that combination, or the predominant combination, was the vessel, the being you see here, the being the physical body here. Isa Ahadi Ahmadi at age 25, and then that was housed by a being known as El Khadir, or the Green One, as he was referred to in the Islamic degree. Understood? So a certain doctrine was taught up until the year 1996, where a book called The Holy Tablets was released. And this was the bridge basically between religion and reality. Understood? So, yeah, oftentimes people sometimes ask, well, is it necessary to learn about the Bible, Quran, if you just come across this information for the first time? But it's not really necessary. You could learn about your stuff directly. Obviously, for some people who've grown up in these various different degrees, and this has really heavily shaped a person's view of the divine, terms like God, Most High, Allah, depending on what school, the Almighty, all various different terms, of Creator, all these different terms, even the various stories, unproven in many cases to date. However, this is what we pattern. This has really affected a lot of our thinking and our perception of how we look at things. So, and the medicine, understood, this is why it's called doctor, but the word doctor, from the Latin word docere, it means to teach. Yeah, but really the doctor is coming with the medicine in this day and time to heal not only our mind, but also seek to really eradicate, eliminate, or exercise, the influence of these adverse genetics that are holding us back from fulfilling our potential. So that combination, as I say, was necessary for that day and time. And then a new combination was necessary after dealing with those basic religious degrees, or first 3 degrees, some consider them to be, and moving on now into our stuff, our doctrine, and learning about truly about self and kind. So after we've really got over the ego of we're related to X person or that person of some noteworthy contribution to humanity, then now it's about really learning about who we are as Nagarnadu, or Negroids, and our role and true purpose in this universe, into the multiverses, into the omniverse. So what is our purpose? Why are we here? And then our own growth pathway or ascension pathway, having been born into the planet in this physical structure called the human body. So that combination then to teach us all of that was necessary, was Ba'h Yaanuwn, Dr. Malachi Z York, and then the etheric entity is known as Ba'h Yaanuwn. Now the Egyptians referred to these beings as the Panatharu, which translates as overseers, some say guardians also, but their proper name is Murzaku, so ones who are providers. Understood? And they lay the claim that they are responsible for not only the creation of this universe, but for us as supreme beings upon these planets, or terrestrial incarnations or representations of the sun. So when we depicted, or when we understood, when we think Panatharu, we should think suns. So SUN suns out there of many different types and sizes, etc. Understood. But obviously our ancestors at a certain point look very similar to how we looked, but obviously have grown, loosely used, but maybe evolved is a better word, or grown, or are, and have always been, I suppose, an element of etheric ancestry, which is there. And obviously we are, as their children, obviously growing into what their divine plan of what we're supposed to be becoming. We might classify that as potential, obviously according to our genetics, genes, etc., as well as the other aspects of our being, which are all part of who we are, i.e. our soul, You understand the two different types we have, our spirit and the etheric aspect of ourself. You understand the Egyptians talk about 9 different principles of ourself, which are growing and becoming, as I say, into supreme beings, or seeking to become into supreme beings once again. Because when a Nagaru female and a Nagaru male came together, the result of output of that was a star child. That's what they were, or we were producing. You understand? So this is what we need to get back to. And the best way to produce star children is to where people come together who are soulmates, truly soulmates. If you look at that word soul and you remove the U, it goes back to the Latin word sol, which means sun. You understand? So this is all tying back in, as I say, to who we are seeking to become. Now, as I say, I tell them I'm going to keep the introduction short today for that reason. But what I do want to emphasize very much as I skip through these sort of introductory slides is the fact that, as I say, in this doctrine known as Wu-Sabat, which is dealing with factual information. Yeah? So Wu-Sabat, new spirituality in this day and time, once a spell was broken for the last 6,000 years, when the year 2000 came in, the end of the devil's rule, so on and so forth. The new cycle information, excuse me, as it was reasserting itself back again with the help of many different events within nature, having to cause us to realign ourselves again, back in tune with nature. We understand certainly as Sabians, and the reason why we call Sabians, or because we are children of Wu-Sabat, also stars ties into the Sirius star constellation, but we are the children of Wu-Sabat. We follow Wu-Sabat as a spiritual science of us as Black people or Nagarnadu, Negroids. Understood? So each of the different races has their own spiritual science, which enables them to unify and come together. Because yes, we are individuals, but we also, as I say, multiple personalities, one soul. You understand? So we live for and by each other, which is supposed to be our natural tribal nature. Understood? And so there's a unifying force and a doctrine that's been missing from the planet up until, well, so missing. The knowledge of it was missing insofar as our ignorance kept it away from us. Not that it wasn't there to access. But as I say, you know, just particularly living in the West and the pollution of many cultures around the world, to be living in the image and after the likeness of white males in particular and white females, obviously by way of the spread of monotheistic religions across the planet, has really poisoned or taken away from, you know, cultures that has existed for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And even around the planet today, even where there is some semblance of those cultures, there's often a hybrid mix which has taken it away from the pristine purity of the original. So the point of just showing this is that there's a 9 way of looking at things, and then there's the opposite of the 9, or considered to be the opposite, which is the 6 way. So as you see on the screen, positivity, life, alive, living. This is what 9 ether as a force represents. It's a combination of all existing gases in nature. Excuse me. And this is what it represents. You see the hieroglyphics, or really the safaf, describe it as making the sound of nupu there. Understood? Excuse me. Making the sound of nupu. Excuse me, this way. Going this way. Yeah, so making the sound of nupu there. So it represents positive life, growth, understood in that regard. And we find those characteristics in the science of and the element of water. Now, this is opposed to the 6, yeah, so also 9, also known as nupu, that's science, and zupu, yeah, the opposite, fire. As you can see here, yeah, when we see this, if you was to take this N, for example, yes, and you turn it counterclockwise, yeah, to 90 degrees, to the left, you see it makes a Z, isn't it? Yeah, if you imagine that N there, it makes a Z. So we get the forces of Zupu, 6 ether. Now, if you think about it, 6 is 2/3 of what 9 is. So it's those original forces, understood, yeah, which have over time, yeah, died. Yeah, and so 9 ether in death becomes 6 ether. So 6 ether represents death, dying, decay, and as you see on some of the Safaf there, there's a lock, yeah, as opposed to when you look at the first one there, we see the Nun bowl, which I'm going to talk about over the distance class. You see that Nun bowl there, or Nu bowl, and then we see that here, that lock or Zabas is a block showing in place that there's an aspect of forces that have been cut off. Yeah, so we don't have access to that strand of energy there. It's been locked off. Understood? And so therefore, as you are familiar with, in order to survive, it must feed off of or subsist off of the forces of the living. This is the science of their religion. Yeah, the interference of the dead into the lives of the living. That's the science of their religion. Yeah, so you can see they do not have access to the inexhaustible energy of Papa Ut. Understood? So locked off, so it causes death and decay. So there's you're constantly going to see that because the world has made itself ignorant, and we also are ignorant, until really, the combination of teachers came, and then finally this master teacher came now to put all the different pieces of the puzzle back together for us, so we could have clear mind again and reconnect with our true ancestral forces. Excuse me. We can see that a lot of our stuff has not only influenced what sits today, but then they've taken that and changed names, places, frequencies, stories, etc., just to seemingly tie into the vine. But it also means that some of our symbols have been repurposed for other meanings. Understood? So some people may see a certain symbol and think, that's evil or negative, but in actuality, how we used it represented something different. Yeah, so someone's taken it, copied it, and then, as I say, reinterpreted it, reimagined it, and obviously through the media has made certain things stick, even if people are not paying attention to it. There's a lot of subliminal, subconscious programming that goes in that we're not always cognizant of. And it makes it more difficult now to show people certain things because they think, well, that's a negative symbol. Because the question is, but who's talking? Who's saying it's negative? And then why is oftentimes the thing there. So the opposite of water is fire. So symbolically, Zupu represents the amber light or fire that consuming, which they worship. Under the deity of the Sumerian, but one of the Anunnaki known as Nanar, whose name itself means master of fire. This is who they worship as the true deity of the monotheistic religions. Yeah, light to us, or fire to us would be, or light, I should say, is chaos. Yeah, we deal with the supreme balancement of blackness, of the darkness. Understood? So this is the difference, and they're not equal to each other insofar as same size, but obviously they represent opposites, arguably in nature. But that doesn't necessarily mean equal, as you look at the so-called night sky or the darkness of space. Yeah, the light never consumes the darkness. Light finds its place in darkness, but it doesn't consume it. As powerful as some of these light entities or whatever are. So just wanted to make that point. So let's move into what we need to touch into today, in today's session, for where we were the last time. Are there any questions?
No outstanding questions so far.
Okay, sounds really good at the moment, so that's great. Okay. All right, so I think we was part way through. I think we were here the last time. So very, very quickly. So we were going through freaks and the perfect creatures. This is what this class was dealing with. And so the freaks were, our understanding of the freaks was that you've got these various different terminologies in the Bible and the Quran, from unicorns, cockatrices, dragons, etc. So if this is the word of God, then it's the divine word of God, as they say, then the question posed to them, are unicorns real? Are cockatrices real? All these different creatures mentioned in their so-called divine books, are they real? So the freaks are these different combinations of mythical creatures which their deity decided to use in a sometimes in an anthropomorphic way, so using it to describe a certain incident of the nature of maybe human beings or certain things that are taking place. So the question is, why is they constantly using so-called mythological creatures, or they consider to be mythological creatures, in the descriptions of man's nature or certain things that are going on? Obviously, there are many millions of combinations of animals here on earth to pick and choose from, but you find littered throughout the Bible and littered throughout the Quran, inclusive of the Torah, let's say these freaks, basically mythological creatures, or certainly tinted by society today, mythological creatures, or no evidence found that these creatures exist, but yet they are quoted throughout. And so if you're a Christian, for example, and you say you don't believe in unicorns, you believe in the word of God, then you have to accept that you believe in unicorns, because that's what's in the book. So that's what we're working through. The perfect creature is in actuality the Nagarnadu, or Negroids, as the Sands people, who we all, different races on the planet, descend from, because that was the original creature designed, or being designed for this environment. Yeah, evoluted out of the waters, we evoluted out of the waters onto land to become the Sands people, 5'4" in height for the males, 4'5" in height for the females, and we touched upon them a little bit later as well. So we were working through Partarak, the prism, because the book Freaks and the Perfect Creature introduces us to a phenomenon known as liquid crystals. So we were looking at the fact that the human body and the structure of the bones, etc., with collagen, actually is a semiconductor, semiconductor of energy, and really trying to get a better understanding of, who we are as human beings, that's what they refer to us as, but who we are as supreme beings, you understand, and how we've been ordered, certainly as Nagarnadu, as these kind of quantum energy packets that are able to exchange energy at a significant rate, but through ignorance, our powers, or some say our capabilities, have been diminished. Understood? So maybe because we've been we've grown in this society and we've been conditioned to live within the environment, we had no knowledge really of who we are, as opposed to what we have become based on the bad information that we've been fed in this time. So we were working through the prism to better understand our connection, as I say, to energy, which may be a better way to describe it. So the reality of the situation is that the darkness is where really the true power comes from, because at a certain point light came along and was birthed from darkness, so the world of things. And so this is really stepping back into our origin, where we get to a place where there is no beginning or ending. Certain things have always existed, you understand? And so we're birthed from a state referred to as basic energy, which gave birth to energy. And sense of this world of things, and out of that, as I say, universes and so on and so forth have been formulated within the all or Papa Ut, all expanding. So let's work through where we were. I think it was on page 5, or 4. We'll start from 4, just to make it make sense. So we'll do a little bit of reading, and then I'll step away from the reading and we'll talk a bit more. So anything's not clear, please ask questions. So what we were understanding as well was that energy obviously is being transmitted, or as we're seeing it, or as it's being classified, in wave form. In fact, energy moves in straight lines, but the effect of what is known as dark matter causes it to move in wave form, understood? And the fact that we are melanated beings is that we have the ability to receive that energy, but maybe the issue is how we interpret that based on the environment that we're in is some of the challenges and the issues that we're facing. So Wu-Sabat in itself is a frequency, and we discussed in the last class the actual station in this particular universe that it's being broadcast from. And so the reason why a person may step in and out of, or you receive, let's say, intuitive flashes of consciousness and receiving certain information at certain times, because you may be tapping in to that particular tone or frequency. And so the reason why a person might engage or should engage in proper spiritual practice according to their race, so in Wu-Sabat, is because you want to stay in tune with that frequency. And so your physical body, your mental, understood, even the way you speak should be naturally ordered to bring us back in line with natural nature. So Wu-Sabat is like a frequency being broadcast, and what happens is we're tapping into it periodically. And a lot of the time, because of the environments that we're in, we don't place enough emphasis on the impact of the environment. We make this statement all the time, as taught by the master teacher, that basically what you've been taught about DNA is incorrect. That a portion of our DNA, 76%, may be considered to be a more static code, but 24% of it is in a transient state, reacting to the environment that we're in. So environment is important in terms of our development, as well as obviously the doctrine, the spiritual practices, so on and so forth. You know, the Kadem Mukmatu, the ancient Egyptians, they understood this because their environment mimicked where we came from. Yeah, they were building heaven on earth, something stolen by the monotheistic religious degrees, but we were the ones who truly were building heaven on earth as star children. You understand? So what was taking place in the stars, we were reflecting that on the planet to stay in tune with the Natharu, stay in tune with our Muslafa, our ancestors. Yeah, because we recognize, or we are the result now, we can look in the mirror and see, we are the result of beings who have been untuned from our ancestors, how far we've fallen. So a friend of mine at Wahan used to say, we've gone from building pyramids to building cliffs. A famous statement, as you used to say. So this is how far we've dropped and fallen down. So even more than we know. Certainly, books like this one that we're reading here give us an idea of who we're supposed to be. This is one of the great things about the master teacher, but whether we accept it or not is another thing. When a black man, when the teacher comes in the form of a black man, we've been taught that the white man is the authority, understood, because of the way the information has been delivered and laid out on this planet. So it's very difficult to penetrate the Negro mind, not the Nagarnadu mind, the Negro mind, to move away from that without, as I say, a lot of medicine having to be partaken in the individual, so they're ready to be open-minded enough to receive that which the white man can't confirm. So let's take it from 26. So, and being energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one state to another. 27. And thoughts also are triggered by emotions or energy in motion. 28. So, in fact, all energy ever used, which includes thoughts and emotional energy, exists eternally. 29. In quantum facts, matter is a form of energy. Atoms aren't material substance in all. 30. They are merely small packets, orbs of energy. 31. Even when an electron is described as a particle, when its wave function has collapsed, it remains a form of energy. 32. This energy, of which everything is composed, is in the form of waves that can be encoded with information from outformation just to cells. 33. These waves have infinite capacity for receiving outformation as black and information as white. Is limited to this realm. The orbs of their birth at 6 months in the womb departs at the physical death of white people or Caucasoids as little white orb or flames. We're talking about that last month as the Corriganis inherit in housing, bodies at the 6 month period. We'll be dealing with that in part 2 of this class in even more detail that's expressed on the screen. But you understand as well that outformation in its form really coming from outside, and then when it comes here, it becomes information. So information, as you can see from the phonetics of the words there, it's keeping you in a certain formation. And the issue is that if you choose a religion that is not of your own ancestry and DNA, then it's going to have you out of formation, but in the wrong way. You understand? So you're going to be out of tune, out of sync. Understood? And in this particular society, remember, they've had you in a state of confirmation. But not confirmation is confirming, but con as in contra formation. Let's say or conforming, contra formation, going against the original form. Understood? Because they know or understand at least who the original deities which they worship are, which is in the form of the sun. And that goes back to us as a Fafraye Ka'au, you understand, the spirit of Faf from, you understand, Ka'au, spirit, you understand, Fafraye Ka'au, from the sun spirit, so from the personality of the sun, Fafraye Ka'au, repurposing of the word Africa in this day and time in a new cycle. Information. So the reality is that information, things that you read, what you take in, etc., shapes your form. It affects your endocrinal glandular system. You understand? The word endocrine and indoctrinate are very similar. Understood? So you have to be mindful of what you take in. It shapes your being. This is why your ancestors, the Parnatharo, chose to produce a prolific author in this day and time and produce thousands of books to inform you. So you needed to be, in order to transform you, understood, you need to be informed, but to transform you back into the form that they want you to be in, we need that to come from outformation, so outside of this particular environment. So we're receiving outformation in the form of information, which is what the science of Wu-Sabat is. It's the ability to transform outformation into information, and also in the reverse. Understood? What is that for information being transformed? What is us? Our formation is being transformed to be realigned again with natural nature. 34. So in fact, all energy that has ever been used remains encoded with unique individual rays of light, ending in violet light or black light. 35. Onto higher dimensional frequencies linked to spirit, Ba'ah to soul, Ka'a to ether, Achach with the golden children, Nagaru, Negroid. So the golden children, very quickly, remember, that's a particular interception, a forced interception in our genes of children born between 1973 to 2003, really to upgrade our genes, and then, as I say, they would be able to discern with assistance from the Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn to discern the different energy forms between the planes. So when you talk about planes, they are moods of vibrational energy in a form of a system. Understood? So a physical plane, plane of force, spiritual plane, mental plane. So these different types of planes with various different finite differences between. So for example, you look at your hands, you have on the physical plane, you look at your hands, for example, your skin and your nails are both made from keratin. Yeah? So they're made from the same material, but they are vibrating, obviously, within different frequency range. So these children have the ability, or encoded with this ability, once taught, to be able to discern that. And that purpose is really to, when at the point of death, where our ancestral energy has ended up in some of these lower etheric planes, from 1 to 6 ether, understood, they're being used by certain elemental forces as spiritual batteries. It should not be in that etheric range. It should be at 7, 8, and 9 ether energy range levels, which will always be of our own ancestry. So it's a race's purpose to direct its energy out from itself to its muslafu in the first instance, that's our ancestors, and then to our etheric and our physical ancestors, linked to them by blood, and then to our higher etheric ancestors, referred to as the Natharu, understood. And so anywhere else is a problem, understood, because, as I say, those forces of 6 ether and below are using our ancestral energy as etheric battery. And when we die, which we did touch upon last week, remember the soul, if you think about when you take a picture of yourself with a Kirlian photograph, it would show your aura as a kaleidoscope of different colors based on your emotions, which is energy in motion. And so therefore, the soul in itself, or the Ba'ah soul, not the Rawu soul, they're two different ones, but the Ba'ah soul, it shatters at the point of death like a piece of broken glass or whatever. And the Ka'as, which it's made up of, then obviously gravitate towards the vibrational frequency of the person's last set of thinking, or whatever the case may be. So if you die in fear, then obviously fear is not associated with higher forms of energy, but the lower ones. And so you're going to end up, more of your aspects of yourself, are going to end up on these lower frequencies. So the children were designed to, once interacting with this being known as the Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn or Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn. Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn is equipped with the ability to discern, because we all, as 9 ether beings, have all of the planes existing within us. Understood? But one has to know, having experience, to know, okay, well, what's the difference between this one versus this one? So somebody having that experience would then be able to teach those children by touch, i.e. because the resonant frequency, somebody learning it through resonance would be able to then identify, that is the spiritual plane, that is the mental plane, so on and so forth, and then be able to transform between the two. So to gravitate or match the energy of our ancestors on these lower planes, because each one of those children, having been born in a certain lineage, understood, or line age, would then be able to pull, having the right frequency or tone, align any ancestors who were down in those lower planes and pull them back out into, so they could be then placed within 6, 7, 8, and 9 ether ranges. Understood? So this is the purpose of the Golden Children, where they took all their Messiah story from and all that, which is a class for another day. But that's an interception in our genes to upgrade us more quickly. Understand? Force integration. Excuse me. And there's a whole part to rack on that, so if you want more information on that, go and read the detail of that. But that project of realignment is known as Rei Ha or Rei Hara Achatwi. That is the project or the program of realigning, say, our ancestral energy, where it is only, as I say, linked and tied into us as a race. Understood? No one else should be feeding off of our ancestral energy. Their whole doctrine really seeks to try and overlay their stuff, or put a barrier between us and nature. And certainly seeing everybody now struggling with all these utility bills, but they've put themselves, isn't it, in a position between us and nature. Where possible, they're going to charge you, understood, for them playing provider. In a lot of instances, if they could charge for air, they would. So they could tax. They even now tax for air. Let's be honest, they do tax for air now. So not in the context of you breathing, but if you drive a certain type of vehicle and it's not, let's say, compliant, which is a good thing, it's not compliant with the, the air cleanliness, you understand, rules or pollution rules or whatever, then they're going to charge you for that. You understand that? If they could put you in a dome and control that dome, trust me, they would charge you for providing you with clean air. So they always want to put themselves between us and nature. And this is something, as I say, really to truly be free, you have to be really on your back on your own land and living back off the land again. You understand? Not to say you're going back to some kind of medieval living again. That's not what we're talking about. But children today think chickens come from supermarkets if you want to eat chicken. Do you understand? So to have real true control, you need to be, the way the environment was set up was for us to live off the land. You understand? Nature provides. Obviously, now they have you thinking that if I don't have enough money, then I can't eat. Which it feels like it's true, but then, imagine that you're living in a house or with a garden, or maybe on your estate if you don't have a garden, there's land around, you understand, which could be converted into growing plants and food so that people don't go hungry again. If you live in the country or the Caribbean or certain place in Africa where near farmland or whatever, people grew up around fruit trees and different types of trees. If they was hungry, it wasn't a case of, they want to convince you to go to the sweet shop to spend your money and buy things that you think you like because they want to get you addicted to sugar. But equally, you could pick fruit off the trees and different things like that, and that would be the snack. Who's paying for it? The environment's already produced those things. Understand? So getting real back to that natural way of living is also part of it. But we're not, as I say, we're natural living, but we're not low technology. Understand that? So here, 36, the Gyro Negroids have their own frequency signature or tone of vibrations, what we've been touching upon. 37, so Nagaro Negroids are living beings, are packets of quantum energy as a part of the entire all, constantly exchanging outformation to information with the inexhaustible energy of Ba'h B'ah, the all expanding. Inexhaustible. Yeah, never runs out. Yeah, so this is explaining to you or us that we're connected to that. Others cannot say the same. They don't have the same apparatus as we have. In fact, that which nature blessed us with, we're hated for this reason, because of that divine, if you want to call it that, connection to all. 38. Any questions? So any questions?
No questions currently.
So 38 it's also called the 0 point field and is described as an ocean of microscopic vibration in the space or ether. 39, a huge reservoir of mental to physical energy. 40, so like subatomic particles influence all other particles instantaneously over time and space. So that's a phenomena known as quantum entanglement. So when we start to look at, as in 40, that's quantum entanglement. So that's basically the phenomena. You can look it up. But that's a phenomena where basically, irrespective of distance, two particles on a quantum level can be billions, millions of light years away from each other. But if they're interconnected on that level, when you move one particle, instantaneously the other one moves. Yeah, so there's a connection that we have on a quantum level where, as I say, we can take advantage of, that type of connection, so to speak. Yeah, so quantum entanglement, it is referred to as I say, it ties into us having our paraphragm gland again, the intake of something called monatomic elements of different types, as I say, to reorganize DNA to make it 10,000 times or more potent. So there's a master secret that deals with that called math, because if you want more information on that. So it says 42. Violet is composed of 9 levels of colors from Nun, purple, to Atum, blue. And you see, even here, we're seeing even the way in which the energy is set up. You can see that it correlates to how we even are set up as a species. We have 9 physical ethers. As physical ethers, we refer to basically within our race, we have 9 different subspecies of Nagarnadu. See, from the yellow of caramel color you see of the Sands people, to blue, black, you might see in Congo and places like that. So within our species, we have 9 different levels of colors, understood, yeah? Even though we're referred to as black, there's very few of us who actually, black is not a color, it's a state, but there's very few of us who even at that end of the spectrum. We are various different shades or hues, hence the word human, hue, H-U-E, human beings in that regard. But you can see at an etheric level, you understand, an etheric level, these things, the same patterns exist. So 43. So we have light and sound. 44. Light has been made clear. Now look at sound. 45. Light is photons and sound is phonons. 46. And have a direct influence on matter and cells, even on DNA. 47. So voices of other races, words, songs, chants can affect your DNA. And being a Nagaru, Negroids vibrate the highest, all others can only do you harm. 48. If you allow it to enter and transform your inner voice, as 6 ether beings do with their voices and what they call music. 49. Or their prayers, repeated phrases, invocations, affirmations, gospels, mantras, or hymns. 50. The very sound of their voice over and over is not healthy for you, Nagaru, Negroids. 51. The world of form can be changed by lights and sounds coming into your body, and their dissonant sounds create chaotic forms, beast, demons, all from the small white orb of light and white light, or Koriganis, fairies, which we were talking about in the last class. 52. Learn to speak Nuwapuyi, or Misbatia, in your own tones and words. 53. It is based upon optical manifestation of sonic energy, and this is the key, and blocks out all interferences of demonic tones. People was asking a lot of questions, I think, in the last class about, how do you protect yourself and different things of that nature. As we explained, the reason why we got caught and the way we were able to be intercepted is because, remember, when mixing took place within our genetics, overstood, and in the wrong kind of ways, then that lowered our vibrational frequency, because we've got genes within us that are vibrating on these lower forces, understood? And so if we were always vibrating and operating at 7, 8, and 9 ether forces, which the world hasn't experienced yet, but through what's referred to as a phenomenon called a dimensional shift, the planet is shifting in its own evolutionary journey or growth journey or ascension journey. It is now shifting to a 7, 8, 9 ether existence. Happens every 24,000 years, understood? So that alone, if we were vibrating at that level, we couldn't be touched. Understood? We couldn't be touched. And remember, we were very protective. We didn't It's not that we didn't interact with other races, but remember that even that word Europe, it describes, you, God, rope. The rope was the nickname for the immigration system that surrounded Africa. So we traded with other races, but we didn't allow them to mix amongst us. So for this reason of maintaining a certain vibration within the environment. Yeah, because when allowing others to come in, particularly when if they don't respect the culture, so people can come in around us, but they don't respect the culture, they're not willing to respect that, then it can affect or alter the vibration that surrounds us. So this is saying here, well, speak your language. The language has protection within it, the tones, because you're starting to raise the vibration of us. Yes, when you're speaking, remember, you are changing your form. Yeah, that's one of the importance of it. So some things, a lot of the hard things that seemingly are hard or that people don't like to do when they encounter this doctrine, like, for example, the Parter Act tells everybody they should be part of the Blue House, Masonry, our type of Masonry, and the White House for the sisters, Masonry again, because it teaches males and females how to work together in unity, how to build. Speculatively and operatively. And even then, when we truly know the secrets, it's not speculative to us. So the reality of the situation is the other thing always pressed upon us by the master teacher is the language. And people, again, find this difficult to gravitate to, but yet they want all the benefits of, of spirituality and this, that, etc., etc. But the simple things that we need to do is master language. I'm saying I'm perfect in that, etc. But everybody needs to be on that, because that's how you establish a culture and a nation. When you hear two people speaking Italian, you think, hey, pizza, you think whatever, lasagna, you think all the different things associated with being Italian. So we need to get to a point, even if it takes multiple generations, where when we're speaking a language, people think, oh, what's that language? Oh, that's Bispatia. That's the Sabians. You understand? And hear the tones, because our vibrational level will start to raise. Anybody who's done any level of chanting, overstood, or even the old prayer system, yes, if you're saying it in the right tones, you're going to feel that vibration, when you're saying the words properly, and it kind of affects your whole being. So you can feel yourself, maybe over time, doing it. It doesn't, you may not notice the slight differences, but you're vibrating your whole body when you're saying these terms. This is why pushing people towards all this plastic surgery, and don't judge me because I've had my breast enhanced or my butt enhanced or whatever men are doing now in that particular space. Also, the problem is you're changing the temple. And the brother, even now on the phone, Harat M. Habab, you got questions on that, will tell you as an acoustic sound engineer, which he deals with, is that the sound changes based on the environment. The acoustics are going to change. So you alter your body if we're not at the right weight, or we allow a surgeon to come in, not from getting surgery from some accident we was in, or because, maybe considered backwards cancer treatment, but some people have to have it, so you get breast reconstruction, different things of that nature. Yes, these are necessities, but they come obviously at a price, but they're necessities. But a person just changing it because they don't like the way they look, or they're trying to look like some Hollywood star or musician, whatever the case may be, that alters your sound. It affects your ability to tune in, because your voice is going to change, because you've altered the environment. You've altered your ability to vibrate, you understand, all the composite parts of your being. As I say, when you sound certain words, even when you're hearing this own chant, understood, and how you're supposed to say it properly by saying and you push the sound, for example, out of your ears and force it up into the nasal area to cause it to vibrate. And these are natural things to help keep us tuned in, understood? And by altering it by way of the surgeon's knife, that is changing that. And this is why they, as I say, they pay millions of dollars to music artists who will move away from the natural form, just for fame and fortune, because it affects what they're putting out of vibration, isn't it? Through by way of the media, which is causing girls, women, etc., to want to change their form, even dying on the surgeon's table, for example, through having these procedures. And men are supporting that, or men like big butts, or men like da 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 da. So then women are changing now to get themselves, because that's who we're giving all the attention to. Understood? So in both ways we're being hit. And so we have to start thinking maybe less of ourselves individually and more about what we need to sacrifice for the planetary nation or the race. Now, so it's saying here, learn to speak Nwapuyi or Mispatia in your own tones and words. 53, it's based on optical manifestations of sonic energy and blocks out all interferences of demonic tones. 54, it's about vocalization and visualization, which equals manifestation. 55, so sound is carried by waves of consciousness. 56, unlike white light or that which fractures or breaks, when sound waves enter into the ear, they are converted into electrical impulses in the brain. 58. So in fact, light and sound play a part in birth or life. 59. So a living parent gets its life, that is physical life, from its parents, its gender from its mother within the first 3 to 6 weeks in the mother's womb. Gender is determined or neuter to hermaphrodite and hermaphrodite. 61. The parents of living beings are its personal creators as creators. So all this, the creator this, creator that, you hear people talking about, understood. We through ignorance, spiritual ignorance, through being mentally dead away from what our real culture was, because the ancient Egyptians did not thank Ba'h Natharu if a doctor healed their child or whatever the case may be. They didn't thank Ba'h Natharu, in the first instance. Of course, Ba'h Natharu is responsible for why we hear life itself, but they thanked the hand of the doctor or the healer who healed their child first, because their dedication and skill, understood, is or knowledge, a correct application, so on and so forth, is responsible for why their child got healed. You understand? But what we do is we miss out everybody in between, where the reality, and then put it up into nothingness to spook beings. Understood? Your connection to the divine, at least as you understand yourself to be physically, is through your parents. They are your deities. Yeah, so that's why it hurts so much when they transition and pass, even if you didn't have a connection with them. You understand? So these things are some of the basic realities of who and what we are today. So 62, a living being is in the image and after the likeness of its mother, XX, and father, XY. 63, 23 chromosomes from XX and 23 chromosomes from XY. Excuse me. Yeah. Your 46 chromosome. Yeah, the 46 one is where you donate those sex chromosomes if you have a child. Now, 64, parents of a living being are its creator by the help and rules of nature. Yeah. 65, an offspring's life is inherent from its parents, and is spontaneous. Look up the word rent there, in the sense, the way the master teacher split it up in that way, because it means what? It ties up into the word provider. Remember we said who the Egyptians referred to as Natharu, what their proper name is Morzaku, Rizkians, providers. Your parent, and is spontaneous. 66, the father and mother of an offspring or living being give up part of their lives through the sexual act, from intention to anticipation, or from the desire to exchange body fluids in anticipation of self-pleasure and gratitude, which is living life from beginning or intention to end in satisfaction, all reflected in the sexual act. So, excuse me. Yeah, we need, in order to create something, we need something. So a person's never quite the same again, because you as the individual, as it's expressing there, you have to donate a piece of yourself. Yes, as the mother donates a piece of herself. the combination of the two of them come together produces a new person. You understand? A child together. Yeah, so 1/3 child is 1/3 their mother, 1/3 their father, and that the combination creates a new tone or a new individual person. Understood? So you're never quite as strong as you were when you have a child. Understood? Because a piece of you had to be donated or given in order for that life to form. So there's really no such thing as the number one in that sense, because in order to create the two, when you get to 99% of one, you have to take 1% of the next thing in order to complete it. You understand? Which we're going to get into a bit later in the next class. Understood? Yeah, no such thing as the number one in that regard. Understood? So again, remember, as Sabaeans, we are what? Numerologists, yeah, factologists, and ontologists. So numbers are important. Understood? And we're going to understand a bit better how numbers, obviously, that we should learn the periodic table before we learn how to count. Then we would understand energy transition, or how things transform from one state into another a lot better. But this is all reflected in the sex act. Understood? Yeah, sex, as you see there, linked to the number 6, yeah, denotes physical power in us. And then obviously 9 denotes mental power. So the misuse of sex is obviously the problem that we're facing today. You understand? Most of us grew up in a boyfriend, girlfriend culture, dating culture, etc., etc. So whatever society says to do, that's one thing. The natural rules of the environment are something else. And so the reason why it's better that you align your culture with the natural rules, because the reality of the situation is you can't just do what you want out here. Even if society says something's legal, that doesn't mean it's safe. You can legally smoke cigarettes, yeah? And on the packet it tells you it's going to kill you. So legal doesn't mean safe. Legal for us, really, or truly, what it should mean is, okay, it's our ability to live in the natural environment and align with the natural environment with the least amount of consequences for our actions. Yeah, because we can pay a heavy price, or some out there pay a heavy price, or even you, ourselves, can pay a heavy price for just one misuse. Yeah, not even just some people out here sleeping around, doing whatever the case may be. Maybe they don't get no diseases. Not happened to them. The one time a person sleeps, they can end up with AIDS. The one time one person sleeps, they can end up with an unwanted child that they're not ready for at that particular time. The rules of nature are the rules, understood? And they don't work based off emotion. Divine design made it self-sufficient, you understand? Perpetuating. The rules triggered, you understand? It's an amazing design, but it's triggered with the right things happen. The necessary event is triggered, understood? And it doesn't work off of emotions. It throws out their concept of, God, Most High, controlling everything in everybody's lives, understood? But yet helping actors to win Oscars, because they always thank God, or certainly the black ones do. You understand? Forget their parents. Yeah, thank God for this acting and film that I was in. You understand? I embarrassed the race. Yeah, thank God for the Oscar. Yeah, thank God for the Oscar. So who's God then? If God's giving out Oscars to play, a disgraceful film like Precious, you understand? To put that out into the energy. But yeah, thank God for that. So thank God for those movies. But yet children are starving and dying on the streets. But actors are able to get Oscars, or footballers score goals, etc. in a football match. And we're thanking God for, or musicians for their number one hit. Yeah, thank God for that. Yes, but the reality of the situation is that there is no God that they're talking about watching over everything. It doesn't exist, other than the imaginations of the authors who wrote the books. That's the cold reality of their stories that they've given you. There's no Messiah coming. None. Yeah, how long are you going to wait? What, year 3000, the next turn of the millennium? Analyze their stories. We were talking about this conversation the other day. Analyze their stories that they're giving you. And they call it in the beautiful words, yeah? Crucifixion. Yeah, it's a breakdown of two words. Crux. Something which is difficult to understand. And what's the second part? Fiction. Yeah, because it doesn't make sense, the story. Yeah, an angel, visited Mary and impregnated her. Yeah, it's not even like today's times. Where to say, what do they call it? Paternity court on YouTube. Go and watch Paternity Court on YouTube and sit down and see all the issues that it creates when you don't know who the father is. So when Mary was at her time, pregnant by a mystery or spiritual being, come on, man. The time that they was going to be riding to Egypt on that donkey, said, well, obviously we know that it's a Mukasu story now, but if they was black, they would have, by the time they got to Egypt, that relationship would have been done. They would have been done arguing. Tell me again, Mary. You said what was that again, Mary, now? You said a man came in. Joseph, I've told you this story 1,000 times already. Please. You understand? This would have been the conversation that was taking place all the way through, or even them times there, Joseph would have put her up to be stoned. This is the kind of stories that we've accepted as divinity. Yeah, as the person that we're supposed to be putting all our soul into to come back around again to save us from all these hellish conditions. The environment itself, the rules are built in, and I say they're triggered at a certain point. And so we need to understand these rules so we don't fall foul of them. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't matter whether, it don't have to do with whether people are good, bad, indifferent, or whatever the case may be. The rules are designed for a certain reason, to promote growth within the environment. Understand? And to stop things that are that hinder growth in certain instances. Understand? And in certain instances, it may change around. You understand? But as I say, if there was thought and judgment and things of that in there, a lot of decisions wouldn't get made. Yeah, because you see sometimes the problems also with emotions when it comes to applying the rules. Yeah, so the rules are the rules of the environment, and they cannot be changed. That reactive nature of them, the way in which they've been designed to optimize life and existence and progress existence, understood, we have to be in line with it, because otherwise, if we're opposed to it, then it's not going to work for us. And we live in a life that has too many consequences attached to it. And it says no such thing as free will in this environment, because when you make certain choices, it comes with consequences. Yeah, as a result of those choices. Understood. 68. And this is how offspring gets its rules on life and living. 69. With the mother, after 4 births, a woman's mental state changes to a rest state. She becomes settled in life inside, and may not know it outside. 70. She becomes a true mother, other, no longer just a female or woman. Yeah, so we explore that in some detail in the next class we're dealing with. So other, see how it's shown there, the other separated. So tied into, we'll leave that for now. No longer just a female or woman. 71, her 4 moon cycles is completed as nature designed. So the quality principle you see here now being introduced again, 3 in 1, 4 in 1, you can have 5 in 1, 6 in 1, 7 in 1, so on and so forth. But 4 in 1, important principle on this planet. The quality. Quality goes back to the fact that a woman can be a woman, a mother, a grandmother, and a daughter in the one being. Quality principle. And as you see here, tied in now to these 4 phases of the moon. 1 equals new moon. 2 equals first quarter. 3 equals full moon. 4 equals last quarter, crescent moon. 72. The satellite revolving around the planet Earth for the time of a month and effecting the moment of Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, the earth, 73. And at that time, or the fourth offspring, she no longer creates. At that time, or the fourth offspring, she no longer creates. She provides for their children, 74, and is a mate to the father of their children. 75, if she has 4 daughters, one state of mind. If she has 4 sons, another state of mind. If she mixed them up, even another state of mind. She is the deity of the house. 77, the father XY supplies the soul, breath, rawah, in the man blood through his manam, sperm. 78, the mother XX supplies the spirit person, nafas, in bone, Adam, they supply the flesh, jasad. 79, and the ka'ah, spirit, and the ba'ah, soul, and the achach, ether, is from the Salafu ancestors linked to the Natharu overseers. So you see here the differences between the 2 souls that you have. Yeah. So you see here the Rawah soul is supplied by the male. Understood? So that sperm that makes it is carrying what they refer to as the star of life. Understood? So that Rawah soul is the breath, as it says there. You breathe in oxygen through your nose and breathe out carbon dioxide through your mouth. Yeah, firing up your solar plexus. Yeah, the Mukasu doesn't have the soul, both instances, whatever, because he's not lit, referred to as a lunar plexus by some. So we're burning black. You understand? So here we see the 2 souls and the 2 spirits, and the Vas, bone, the personality. Yes. DNA is where our personality resides, understood, versus the ka'ah, which is the higher aspect of self, which helps us to link into the mental reservoir. It's how we draw down thoughts from the mental reservoir, one of its functions. So note that it was, when they used to break down the 3 times 3, it's because it was in different environments, wasn't it? Yes. And so this higher aspect of ourself is directly from our etheric ancestors. You understand? And it's what enables us to live many lives over and over again. We're going to touch upon this in the next class. Enables us to live many times over, up to 24,000 lives in order to perfect ourselves in this particular environment. Let's finish on these last few verses. All this in the 9 moons or 3 periods of gestation by the rules of nature, and it's inherent, the mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA, the records of the genetic family from the very beginning. And so I think we'll finish in that point for this class. So very interesting to get into. So the point is that we've at least got a sense in some instance that you're not just your physical body, but the makeup of your physical body, and now allow us to receive outformation or energy from outside coming in and interpret it accordingly, understood, and understand that we are affected by it. So we were understanding the nature of liquid crystals, that they are solid in their makeup, but they have the qualities of a liquid, and they also have these crystalline qualities. Because remember, those pyramids, a lot of different structures that we had, how you're seeing them now is not how they were. Understood? They're exposed now, as opposed to when they were in their true form, we covered them in crystals. Understood? Certain stones or whatever had crystalline qualities. Yes, those crystals are absorbing or receiving outformation in the form of cosmic rays, etc., which are then stored in these forms. You think about how we use computers and that today, isn't it? It's basically silicone memory, understood, and these types of things. It's the same crystal technology that we're using to run our computers, etc., etc. The difference is that we have the natural ability, for example, to touch some of those structures and read, what that information was saying, rather than interpret or, the zeros and ones, for example, through some computer memory. Understood? So this is what the body, in a sense, or this is what the book's seeking to describe, is that the body's ordered in this way to do that, as we was reading about in the prism there. So, excuse me, we've got different aspects of these liquid crystals in the human body. You see some examples showing there. Main one being collagen. So I think I don't remember if we covered this before, so maybe I'll skip through this. I think we did. Yeah, so semiconductors. Yeah, I think we did cover this before, so I'll probably repeat it. Main stuff. So just very quickly then, just to close out this Freaks and the Perfect Creature class. So sometimes, yeah, these diagrams like this, for example, they can give the impression that, well, that, okay, somebody's drawn this atom or whatever, and that's how it looks. But it can give a false, sometimes, sense of what actually is going on. So here, let's just click on this one, for example. You get this impression that, okay, there's some kind of, in the nucleus, for example, that these atoms here are, or the bits, sorry, particles in the atom, the protons, whatever, are not moving. But in actuality, they're moving in a circular orbit themselves. They're not static here, like they're showing here in this nucleus. Now, the point of this is just to say that, look, the world is not as solid as we think it is. Do you understand? And so some of these liquid crystal layers here that we were seeing, let's just go back, yeah, in terms of these, basically have the ability, excuse me, to decide what's coming in and then what's being allowed in, what's being secreted or allowed out, or released or discharged, understood. And so there's sort of almost in a sense opening and closing in that sense to allow, as I say, information in or things to be excreted. Now, the world is not as solid as we think it is. That's why if you put a syringe, for example, and you put it through the top of your hand and you push down hard enough, it will come through the other side. So if you're truly as solid as we think we are, or we are truly as solid as we think we are, then how are you able to do that? It's showing you that you're not really solid, but actually it's a case of different atoms, molecules being gathered together. Being gathered together, being held together by various different forces. And basically what we think or what we thought was the physical world, as we know now, is broken down into the quantum world, which is also made up of parts with various properties and spaces between them. You understand? And so even as we look here, we see the cell, for example, because they draw it, it looks like, well, okay, there's a solid line around here. And in actuality, it's more closer to what we're looking at here, where you've got this called lipids bilayer, where, as I say, it's actually, again, excuse me, these lipids, gather together closely, and they obviously allow, smaller particles in, and then, larger particles they keep out, and they decide obviously what they allow out. So it's a moving layer of different particles gathered together to allow, as I say, things in and out. And things appear solid, as it's showing here, because our senses are wired, to this environment where, as I say, all of the composite particles through a process called a phenomena, known as nutation, are all vibrating at the same frequency rate. So yeah, I think this is explaining exactly what we've been talking about here, or the importance of it at least. We'll read it 45 from Freaks and the Broken Creature. You as Nardu Negroids are linked to the Kalei Makwanat omniverse, the nine-mind deity of deities, and your connective tissue system is suited to the task of conveying both energy and outformation into information, because it connects to every part of your Mukwan being, to Khatat body, to every other part in sense. So we are in our own right a mini network. Excuse me. And you see there at the Atun point there, the sun is emitting what we're calling this outformation. Do you understand? Because when you look at the hand and the shape of it, yeah, we see it on the Ka'ah, for example, yes, that is you can see the shape of the hand, which you could do now in your own hand or whatever, shape it accordingly, because you've got your fingers and your thumb together. That is basically obviously a delivering message, isn't it? You're carrying something in that position which you're holding to be given over. Yeah, this is what it's depicted. Here we see some, carrying the codes or the messages of life, yeah, as in the Ankh at the end of here, and others. But the question is, where's everything else carrying them? Because they're carrying other information. But you see also us as the Kadem Makmat or the ancient Egyptians. You think about one of the prayer positions where you see the most stereotypical one. You see them Egyptians dancing or whatever the case may be, and they've got their palms, yeah, their arms, both their arms in an L shape, and our both the arms in an L shape, and our palms are facing upwards. Understood? That is an open communication where we're sending something. We're sending something out. Understood? And obviously anybody who remembers the old prayer system, when you entered into that position, the old Ashutat prayer, and you recited the words, etc., you could feel the energy, being sent out from the palms of your hands. So even in that prayer system, remember, we were taking information and turning it into what? Outformation in the form of tachyonic energy, because similar to what the pyramids do, understood? And we have a pyramid in the form of our nose, which we also have. So we were sending out vibes and energy to keep existence or things within existence gathered together in the form of generating tachyonic energy. This is how powerful individuals we are. And one of the reasons for offering prayer, not only for our personal connection, but also enabling us to help, obviously, with the help with existence or be a part of existence, yeah? As we are part of we contain the forms of energy there from the very, or linked to the very origin of things, if you have to classify it like that, for lack of a better word. So all of these different clues of what we're speaking about here, that confirmation is showing in the iconography, in the form of what we recorded, say, on the walls in ancient Egypt, many places around the world. Excuse me. So again, here, understanding for our mental, that it's not, when we talk about levels and things, it's not above, like stacked in a sense of one above the other, but intertwined. They're finely tuned, intertwined, interwoven, in terms of these planes, which say moves of vibrational energy in a system. Yeah, it's interwoven. It's not necessarily levels above, even though we're talking about it in that regard, because it's to say more finite forms of energy. So all of our physical atoms here are actually based upon their etheric counterparts. The etheric counterpart came first, which we classify as E1 down to E99, and then in the physical realm, we go obviously from H1, hydrogen, obviously down to 99, and steinium, as it's classified as today. Now, when we get into the number system a bit, which we're going to talk about in the next class, understand this. Basically, if we're really dealing with it from a number point of view, because as I said, remember you said there's no such thing as a number one, but if you were to use the symbolism of it, when we think about the first 9 numbers and go 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08 down to 09, and then we get to 10, combination of 1 and 0. Understood? Yeah, what's happening is that we're moving into a new dimension. So the 0, 1 is really what we're dealing with here, from the E1 to E9, because really 0.1, understood, this part, everything's part or percentage, understood, until we get to the physical realm, where the numbers, if you look about it, you've got an 01 at the start, then you get to 10, you switch them around. One's first and now the 0 is second. And that represents the physical structure, understood? In fact, when you get to the 9th element, remember you're birthing, I think the 10th element, if memory serves me correctly, excuse me, is neon, correct? A new form of light being birthed, understood? Which again, let's say, denotes or the starting point of the physical realm. So we have to understand these differences, because it aids in our ability to transform ourselves from different states of being. In the sense, we are multi-dimensional, understood, as well as having the ability, as I say, to travel interdimensionally, but we also are multi-dimensional beings because we're vibrating across many different states. It's just that, as I say, our senses happen to be for bad information as well, but wired into this particular realm. And we think that's what is the only reality, which is not the case. Okay, so I think we finished what we need to discuss in that class. Any questions?
No open questions.
Okay. All right. Switch over now. Okay, so that's Freaks done. Say about 5 or 6 parts of that on the YouTube channel, or as I say, seek the book out from your Egypt store for more detail, store for the proper understanding. Now, so we're going to get into the Mother Circuit of Existence Master Secret. Rakum, number 9. Okay, so and you've seen this flash up a number of different times. So you've seen it flash up a number of different times, and we have explained it many times over, but we'll sort of go back over it in the starting to get into this particular class. I just felt, obviously, there's been people may not have encountered these classes before, and some understanding. But we see, importantly, or we need to start our ignorance dissipating. So as we're reading certain things more and more, and certainly these books in particular. So I think we always, sometimes even Sabians can find themselves in a situation where they're almost apologizing for only reading, let's say only reading, but predominantly reading the books within our doctrine. The issue is that the work rate of the master teacher means that, an interesting name, master teacher, well, you need to master what he's teaching and to keep up. So even the fact he's been incarcerated since May 8th, 2002 by the Muadam or the Mukasu, the work rate has still been there. I mean, the books that have been put out even since 2002, no organization has put out as many books as what we have. You understand? And so you have to keep up and master what's being mastered. I'm not saying don't read other people's stuff, but what sometimes people do is they're reading stuff and then, okay, well, let me fly to this topic or some other author who's dealing with this subject, thinking that they're going down a certain path because they're reading ahead. But, I caution you with that approach. Not to say you shouldn't read around subjects of that nature. If you've got time to do it and passion and will to do so, so be it. But that's not confirmation. It's in reality, that's not confirmation. What you need to be doing, if I can be bold enough to say that, what you need to be doing is you need to be getting into the mindset of your ancestors. Because if you truly want to know how they felt and what they knew and who they were and how does it influence who I am, you need to ask them. The only way to do that is you need to reconnect with them. There's no author, you understand, that they've got that's going to write some fantastical book that's better than you reconnecting yourself. When you now understand who you are in terms of this quantum, you understand, energy transformational being, then you should be seeking to connect. Because the same way like you switch on your computer today and you jumped into this particular network called the internet, through a router, connecting through an internet service provider and jumping into the World Wide Web, where you are doing what? We're simply exchanging information, aren't we? That's what your router and your internet provider does. Okay, they want to know about this particular information. Who knows about it? Go and grab it and bring it to me. And what you may know, you're sending it out into that same internet or network. So it's all based upon natural things anyway, or nature's system when you really sort of break it down. So you need to get into the point where we're mastering or getting back really into the mindset of the Kadem Mukmatu, the ancient Egyptians. Getting back into the mindset, how they thought, how they think. As we said last week, all of the Egyptians say, I am an Egyptian. Yeah, I am that. Yeah, I am Anuki Mukmatu. I am Egyptian. I am Kadem Mukmatu. I am the ancient, or Ba'h Kadem Mukmatu. I am the ancient Egyptians. Not the Egyptians. You understand? Yeah, not the Egyptians. Yeah, but like Dr. Ben Buchanan used to say, not knocking him, you understand, he's done some great work, but not the Egyptians, separating yourself only because you were of a different religion. Separate yourself because you were of a religion different to that which your ancestors that you were reading about, that you've done so much great writings about, to help people get back into the knowledge of who they were. With all the misinformation which was out there. So getting into the mindset and seeing maybe how we live today, how it relates and how we're interpreting, or how the genes are interpreting all of that based on today's environmental circumstances is really important. So you're getting back into their mindset to understand how they thought. Yeah? And so you need to have some level of interest or passion for that which Wu-Sabat, if you allow it to, will give you. So we see here some symbols on the front and the message, know thyself. And that was really a message you've heard from a lot of different teachers. And we may have interpreted it in different ways. However, today's Wu-Sabat reimagined understanding of it, know thyself, is know how the human body works. That's what know thyself means today. Understood? Know how the body works. Or at least study the body, because in studying the body, you are studying a universe, because your universe is a body. Now, the importance of iconography, different symbols, which is also a characteristic of us as Kadem Egyptians, is also important. And in natural ether energy, very important verse 41, which says, in Kadem Makmat, ancient Egypt or Tamaray, your Salafu ancestors, Musbatu Sabians, in Wu-Sabat, we used Ramaz symbol to explain an example of the Alam Sakhamat, hidden powers of visible, invisible, bara, space. Yeah, so there's a hidden meaning, yeah, or hidden power, and symbolism, understood, reminds us of that. Yeah, because we're seeing images, and you know, we say hieroglyph, which very, very common terminology, isn't it, to explain, well, that's what it's called, hieroglyphs. But that's not the name of it. How can it be? It's Greek. So we're already off the wrong tones if we're saying hieroglyph. Isn't it? There was already a lack of understanding there if we're saying hieroglyph. Because that's somebody's interpretation of what's being said. Not understand or being a part of it and you understand it because you're from that. Like somebody, I don't know, you're from a certain area or whatever. There may be certain slang or certain lingo being used which is unique to that area. And obviously, if you're not from that, you may not understand exactly what they're talking about or what it means until somebody gives up the meaning of it. Understood? And so here we can see it can mean a lot of different things. But here is the proper meaning of it, that this hidden power, saying like Amun, saying hidden power of space, saying this world of things, that versus, as I say, the visible creation that we see in the form of what's sometimes referred to as light, or matter in that sense, even though it all matters in that regard. Yeah, this separation between the two, which we have to contemplate, really truly understanding these words. So, interesting enough, you see here on the front, you see these Nun bowls, 3 of them in particularly positioned. You understand? Above this symbol here, which is referred to as the Patet, you understand? Or Patat, as the sky. Correct? So you see these bowls here, and it can mean a lot of different things, but space, matter, and time is one of the attributes of here. The 3 inseparable things that one needs for existence. Yeah? 3 things needed for existence: space, matter, and time. Without that, no existence. And they are inseparable. So you're not going to find one without the other. They're 3 in 1. Different characteristics, however, all to be found to make up existence. Then we see the symbol for the sky, understood, or heavens. And then now we see the Ankh, which we should be familiar with that, Erica Badu. So it's about the circular bit being the womb and the downward bit being the phallus. You see the Ta'at symbol or Tet symbol here, which represents or denotes little people. Also can be the blood within the human body. Understood? Yeah, so we see here symbol for life, or what they say, the key of life, because, or the key of life or eternal life, some describe it as, because through your children, that's how one lives on. Remember we talked about here, or we read about donating a piece of yourself in order for the child to be born. Understood? So your children are you, they say in Wu-Sabat. Do you like what you see? Yeah, because what you're looking at is yourself. Sometimes maybe that's the reason why we don't like our children. Because we see them doing stuff that we thought we like about ourselves. See our children doing exactly the same thing. What do you expect? So, and this is why sometimes I say you need to tell children stories about them, about yourself, you live, etc. So they better understand their own nature. And if we kept better records of the 30 people that make up our 4 generations, we'd be able to and kept detailed records of who they were or the type of person they were, then whatever genes are expressing themselves in the children out of the 30, they'd better understand their own nature and control of their of the thoughts that they're receiving, that guided or manifesting themselves in their head at every waking moment of time. Now, let's say, so we've got two here, we've got little people here. Also, it's a symbol for the sands people, little people, yeah, which you can see there. And then we've got this encasement that you see on cartouches, understood, a larger version, it's a Shen. And then we see here horizontal line here, wavy line or squiggly line here, which represents naturally occurring water. Understood? So horizontal, naturally occurring water, when it's filled in like this, represents the Blue Nile. Understood? Or Nine river. That's more. They howl, I think, in Sabaic. You have to double check that, but it's the howl in the Nile River. So here, naturally occurring water, and then this is a symbol for Earth, or Ptah, saying the planet Earth, or Ptah, in terms of planet Earth. So you can see here, just in these few symbols, it's telling us how we got here. Yeah, we came out of existence from the skies, understood, yeah, to be born through woman and a man on Earth, understood, within this, on Earth, which is not really Earth, but it's what? It's a water planet. It's a water planet, understood? And between the Earth and the sky, we exist. So our story can be told in different ways by simple understanding these symbols. But the symbols are not for everybody. So in order to keep knowledge away from the fool, understood, things were encoded. Yeah, and even further encoded by tonation. So if you can't even pronounce the words properly, you won't be able to activate the certain forces in nature, even if you knew the science of the secrets. So this is why us as a people need to learn to know how to keep secrets again. We love run off our mouth. As soon as something happens, the people are, not the Pan-Africanists, but they're always constantly telling the white man what they must do to correct the situation that we find ourselves in, a lot of times in academic scenarios or settings, whatever the case may be. Well, so we like to run up our mouth. You understand? Or there'll be one amongst us run up our mouth, tell, well, you're doing this or you're doing that, or to tell them this or the secret, so on and so forth. Well, sometimes in a lot of situations, we just learn to, there's a more colourful way of saying it, but just stay quiet. Some reason when, black people in trouble or him seemingly being accused of something in the media, we feel like we always have to speak about certain things. Sometimes just stay quiet. Let the thing play out. Yeah, so the ability to learn to keep secrets is an attribute of our race. To know the meaning of things within the culture and to keep it within the culture. It's a characteristic of our race. It's one of the reasons maybe why everybody's told to go and join the Blue and the White House, because you learn to keep secrets. A secret is what? Secrete. That's what hormones do. Yes, correct? They secrete information. And to learn, but they're only supposed to be released at the appropriate time. They're not constantly secreted. So at the right time, we speak. And when it's not the right time, we don't speak. Yeah, so we have to learn our natural ways again. Get back to our natural nature again. Yeah, and it has to be certain times a conscious decision to remove the beastly ways and express the more divine ways of part of our being. So nothing is done for no reason. Understand? We see certain symbols, ways certain things are positioned, etc., or certain way our ancestors worked. Everything was for a reason. Now, we used to explain this all the time at start of class, and we've done so for a minute. But again, you see, again, similar symbols there that we just saw, correct? And so, again, we see the attack there, the sky, but we see it now slightly different, with a star in the center. Understood? So this is now dealing with not the sky, the so-called blue skies you see on planet Earth, but now dealing with the outer space. Yes? Here we see that the cartouche, which we use, you understand, to protect the name or the tones, our secret tones or whatever, and you see it in rope form. And you hear a famous saying of the master teacher, hold on to the what? Hold on to the rope, correct? So we see this rope here, yeah, linked to encasing, you understand, a person's name, you understand, or the tone, yeah, the secret name as we know, or the big name, and the little name. The little name everybody knew you by, the big name was kept secret, only known to your parents. So we see that on the side here, in the Misbati, or one of our dialects, one of our scripts of Misbati, we see Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn. This is what this will say here on this side. So here we see that the attack gives us our P sound. Excuse me, not P sound. It's a P sound, but attack means heavens. This gives our heaven bit here. The symbol which we already showed you previously on the previous slide, you see, means earth. So this gives us our earth here in the Master Yaanuwn of heaven and earth. So telling you what the beings are. So encapsulated in these two zones, maybe you should have on 2 points. As we have it here. So in the cartouche itself, we see what? The stool, Palel, it's a stool, S-T-O-O-L, yeah, stool, something you sit on. And it's got the term Palel. Here, you see that this kind of half weaved basket, which is a weaved basket, when you see this little, it's very difficult to resolution, but it's got a little sort of rectangle here coming off of it. And this means it is a symbol of the Bab, but it means Lord, translates. Understood? So we see Pa there, the Pa of Pa, the Bab here, and then we see 2 reeds, gives us our Ya sound or Ya sound. Yeah, 2 reeds there. And then when we see these famous bowls again, yeah, the Nu bowls or Nun bowls. It gives us what? That Nu sound, correct? And then what? We see that the naturally occurring water, you see in blue there, denoting the blue Nile. So if it's filled in, it's the blue Nile. If it's opaque, it's how transparent, then it's be the white Nile. Understood? Yes? And so that's where you get the N sound. Neh sound, yeah. So here you see what? Nabab, Ya, Nun, of heaven and earth. So the reality of the situation is people can talk a lot of was about who we are, who the master teacher is, but the reality of it is people around the world from council states and from the projects are breaking down the Safaf. So there's no power in this doctrine or power in this Amun Nabab Raye, a Hakhtar, coming back around again every 24,000 years. How are those who coming out of the council states and the projects breaking down, understood, these Safaf, which they didn't even know what the proper name for it was until the master teacher came along. How is that happening world over? How are we breaking it down? And we never went to no school of Egyptology. We haven't been studying Cairo. We haven't dug up, understood the bones of our ancestors to find out all this information. What we've done, we've recreated. Yeah, that's why you have to go and look where we are in Bushwick Avenue, Brooklyn, and see what has been built there. And look at the safaf covering the building. Done by what? Teenagers, young men, young sisters. The son who came from humble beginnings in many cases. The people, niggers, Negroes, will rather fly to the other place. They use the white man's work, white man's methodologies, digging up this and that, but then you see your own Nagaru, your own people, recreating greatness in the very ghettos, you understand, or areas in this country, cities within this country or in the States, whatever the case may be, and we're not showing it its due and proper respect. But you say you want to learn about your ancestors. Well, the whole thing about ancestors is that ancestors produce children who are living, that they're connected to. So, of course, at a certain point, when we got back into the knowledge of who and what we were going to be expressing this culture. We were going to come back into the knowledge of who and what we are again. But someone wants to tell you, oh, it's not real. Oh, those are not real pyramids on Tamaray. What do you mean it's not real pyramids? Did you not see the tachyon energy that was emitted, the standard columnar waves that were emitted when they took photographs from the different shapes of the pyramids? As I said, I can't remember I said it on this class. I saw Dr. Lionel Jeffries on the stage one time, 1 year in Tamaray. He was on the stage delivering a lecture. Now, what must have been going through his mind? You're on the stage. You've been reading all your life about black studies and all the things your ancestors done. And you're looking at the stage, you've got people in front of you, you're speaking from the stage. And in the back of the people, when you're looking out across the stage, you can see a pyramid in the back. You can see the Sphinx, a Paruti in the back. 2 pyramids, in fact. To your left, you can see an obelisk covered in colorful safaf. At what point does it not become real? They want you to worship dead and dead things. We started off the class today about 6 evil forces. They want you to worship the dead. And the book of the dead is the Bible. Everybody in the book is dead. They have to start getting back to the 9 again and dealing with the living. Paying attention to who's breaking it down today. That's why they got him up there doing a 1-3-5 stretch. Look at those numbers. 1 plus what? Plus 3 plus what? Plus is what? 9, correct? But it also happens to be the major tones of how children are produced. 1, mother. 5, father. 3, you understand? Excuse me. 1, mother. 3, father. 5 is the child. 2 points, 2 points coming together to produce the 3rd point. Intonation. Got the master trapped in the belly of the beast. Everything's about the same story. Yeah, go listen to CD6, Ida Patmos series, Are the Wapians Under the Spell. Same story. Starting in ancient Egypt has traveled around the world. And our story, is within these symbols. That's why we're getting back into the mindset of it. And what? The very mystery, the mysterious story is the deity of the house. We just read about this. Deity of the planet, the woman. Mysterious. In darkness. Sacred Femi-nine. Where the mysteries is that they can't see and don't want to look at because they're not matriarchal. And women, don't let the Mukasu trick you out of your position by getting her to give this fake thing of transparency by letting you become unmysterious. See, a lot of the media there having women talking about what sexual position they like, what this, what that, as if the forces of nature put you back in your position to be sacred feminine again, to be number one back again, put you back in your position so that you can what? Be naked on album covers, be naked in videos. Is that why nature forced all these situations to put you back in position so the media can trick you out your position to get yourself expressing sex as lust, not sexual power, but sex as lust? Why women or these artists feel they have to basically come on the screen naked in order to get respect? The drug dealer and the stripper are the new superheroes. That's what they want to convince the world in the black community now. All things that maybe some may argue have to be done in certain instances for survival. And this is why, so you can go on podcasts, this is why you were given all this, you understand, hype, so we can now know what sexual positions a woman likes and so on and so forth. This is why they're tricking people out of their position. No, that's not why it is. Your nature is to be mysterious, to be alluring. If a man is worthy to know, then he can know. If he's not worthy, he shouldn't have to know. He can guess, he can speculate, whatever the case may be. Understood? There's nothing wrong, as I say, if we take lust out of the picture, there's nothing wrong with women expressing their sexuality. They should do so. I'm not talking about not expressing it. What I'm saying is it's turned into a lust situation. And as I say, many women are getting tricked in their position to, as I say, reveal certain secrets that the world shouldn't know. Yeah, it's not always good. I'm not saying we don't have to have real conversations about real subjects. However, you're not supposed to tell the world a lot of your innocent man and woman. You're not supposed to tell the world everything about you because it can be used against you. Yeah, so you do have to be guarded about what you say and what you say about yourself and what you release about yourself to the public. When the situation's appropriate, maybe initiations, things like that, and they say to you, well, hey, you asked a certain question, then yes, honesty is required. You ask them direct questions in safe spaces. It's not supposed to be a thing of, hey, this newfound liberty, boom, 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 and people are saying, well, this is a new thing, you should do this, or do hot girl summer, and all these different types of things. Okay, hot girl summer would be great. Hot girl summer would be great. Understand, or what they're talking about, whole phases. Be mindful of what people are doing where they've had shame and embarrassment and this thing of religiosity. Religiosity is a phenomena the master teacher expressed, is where people doing wrong try and get other people to do wrong, so that basically if enough people are doing the wrong thing, it feels right. Yeah, so a person has done something which caused them, which previously in society, it was judged rightly or wrongly as negative or adverse behavior. Yeah, embarrassing, shameful behavior. But if I can get enough people to do the same thing, then that which was shameful becomes okay to do. Religiosity, same thing, it's done in religion. They know it's wrong. They know, you understand, that a woman cannot produce a male child without the presence of a Y chromosome. If I can get enough people to believe that wrong, You understand? Is right, then we become right. Or we feel right. This is religiosity. And let's not get tricked out of our position. Yeah, nature's restoring the woman back to power because that is the way things are supposed to be. Everything starts with the feminine first. Yeah, and they want to create the war between the sexes. You understand? Because they know, yes, star children need to be produced by soul mates. It's not a competition between man and woman. About finding a way to work together. We are the children of the Nathar. We have to figure it out and not let other races come in between us and I keep saying the same thing, trick us out of both our positions. Yeah, and the rightful future that we are supposed to inherit, replacing faith with controlling or taking back control of our fate again. And the fact that you're seeing, as I say, these symbols being broken down, unmasked, being explained clearly, and you're getting to the understanding of it, you're starting to speak back your language again, and various different things, your mindset is changing, you're seeing the world differently. All of these are evidence of us realigning again. And the prize that awaits us for who we are, not for who they want us to be. That's why we have to hold on to the rope. Not just hold on to the rope. Understand? Encapsulate, protect ourselves with that same rope. Now, any other questions?
Right. Rabat, there's a 3 questions here. And it's from Atifat Neri. She was asking if she can screenshot the photos and share them on Facebook. That was one question from her. And the second question from that person was, is it okay for any and everyone to have access to our stuff, or is our stuff still sacred and best kept secret?
Good question. With the screenshots, yeah, I suppose so. As long as just be mindful about where you're sharing it, and not that there's anything hidden from it, but it can be interpreted a certain way. So I think if you're going to share it, or whatever, maybe post a source or whatever as well, so find out more information. Then they can check us for the meanings. Show. Yeah, so that's fine. To answer the second question, well, true secrets is why we are really shared mouth to ear, and it's one of the reasons why it's encouraged that in terms of our ascension journey and the part of Iraq, it encourages us to become part of orders, because as you know, in ancient times, orders were used to convey certain information. Understand? And where it was secret, or potentially if it got out, or it was in the wrong hands or whatever, then it would be detrimental. Then it would be conveyed mouth to ear. As far as our books and this doctrine is concerned, no, share it and let people know about it. Share it with the world. You understand? Obviously, we know how to move. You understand? And so those who really want to know and are worthy to know and put the work in, then, you know, as long as they're using it for the right reasons, then they're entitled to know. So anybody who respects our culture, maybe they're not of our race, maybe they're not a Nagarnadu. If they respect the culture and they respect what's being taught, then they become part of our family. There was a third question.
Right. Yeah. 2 questions from the same person, Mr. Leroy. Right. He's asking, can you repeat what the symbols are again? What the balls symbolize, the reed and the symbols above the reeds? Or can you tell them what books explain these symbols.
So where does he want to go back to? So which symbols? This stuff here, yeah?
Yeah, the Safaf, yeah.
So the or the Suf, Safaf, sometimes it's called Safaf now. It was Suf before, or Safaf script. So you're going to find this in various books. Now we're exposing it to you, like for example, the proof. The sound, you see it in the proof. You see it in a lot of the different actual facts. Now the purpose of this is almost to say, once you open your eyes to it, when you look at those things again, it may stand out to you more because we've given it some expression. Do you understand? But all of the safaf and the different meanings behind it, overstood, is never going to be conveyed, all of it in forums like this. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's something that's going to be taught to various different people. But these ones you can see because they're on display. So the meaning of them is available in various books. And so there's probably too many to mention. See, mother of existence, we're going to go through some of that. That's why we're doing it right now. Proof is good, natural energy. There's a plethora of actual facts and as well as master secrets. You'll see these symbols. When you see them, obviously, look at them for a second, contemplate their meaning. We're encouraging you to show interest in being curious about them. So that then trigger at least the requirement of the subconscious mind to have and find those answers. Yeah. So the sound of the alphabet. So this is obviously some of these words here, things of that nature. So I say Palel, stool here. This symbol, which we will revisit as well, and some of these again further slides, is Lord or Nabab. The two reeds there is a ya sound. Yeah, two reeds. That's what they're showing there. And these bowls we will go through in more detail. But space, matter, and time is one of our understandings for them, and they're called Nu bowls, N-U, or some call them Nun bowls, N-U-N. And then obviously the Nile there gives a N sound, a ne sound, which people call N. It's obviously got to get away from it. By the way, when we're speaking Sabaic, the way we say the alphabet now is obviously, as we say A, B, C, D. So we try not to, it's really phonetically, isn't it? Be, se, de. Yeah, as the equivalents. Because if I say F, for example, F is not a f. The f is phonetics, isn't it? F is the F. So if I say H, it's not a h. It's fib. You say H. It's got a different sound. Yeah, but maybe it's so it causes confusion. They weren't intelligent enough to create unique sounds for all of the different letters. As it creates that's what I say, meh, this sound. Sometimes, let's say, usually there's a word related to what the thing is that you say, okay, well that like Palel represents P. Yeah, or per. So yeah, Palel, per. So you get that pa sound, but it's not always the case that the word or the meaning of what the thing's called always relates to the letter. Sound of what it's called. And so, as I say, the Madrasa Tashrak, this is some stuff that they're picking, so they places around the world, and then they'll start teaching this. So, any other questions?
No, that is it for questions. I'd just like to bring your attention to when you are speaking into the mic, it was kind of fading in places. I'm not sure if you're moving away from the mic. Just to watch that, that's all.
I appreciate that. Let me sit up straight. Yeah, so got too relaxed. So so we've got some symbols here on the screen. So we explained to you just shortly, or just previously, I suppose, that this represents the little people. Yeah, the Tahat or the Tet symbol. Now, Partarak. Actually, I forgot the name. It's, I've got the name, so that may come back a bit. But it's dealing with the tones. Yeah. So there's a Partarak dealing with the tones, which is probably not very helpful, but I'll find the name shortly. But it explains about us creating, or it gives the directions of how, as a people in this day and time, because our bodies have changed, we've tumbled forward, and we've got a different configuration now. We're not 5'4" in height anymore. We're not 4'5". Evolution. Some refer to it as evolutionary tar, but the genes have tumbled forward, so we're different to what those original science people were. And so the book explains about how to come together as a people, male and female, and to create a new Om sound in this day and time. Understood? And what it explains is that the major tones of the body, the major tones of the planet, and the major tones of the cosmos. Understood? And so A major is the tone of the human body. Understood? So interesting enough, I suppose if you used to play the Om in a major, you would probably start to see that, and you kept it on, for example, you probably start to see, you receiving or feeling like you receive messages, stop this habit, stop this bad habit, stop that. Sometimes you just might wake up and say, hey, I'm going to, you know what I mean? Some people just wake up on Sunday and say, hey, I want to be that kind of stuff, for example. And it could be a genetic explosion. Sometimes it's to do with the fact that you're sinking in, or you might have heard some of these tones. And so it's forcing your body now to realign itself with natural nature. And so the 8th tone is the tone of the human body, which is why it's the shape of the ear, different things around the body are designed to be in tune with natural nature. You'll rant about this thing of, well, don't change, people changing the body and they don't want to be judged for changing it, or body shaming. Put by choice, you understand, people not happy with whatever they've been born with, and then by choice augmenting it with plastic, in the mind of a surgeon, to what's beautiful, or whatever the case may be, or what's aesthetically pleasing. So the issue is that if a person's born healthy, that combination of the mother and father coming together mathematically produces a certain result. And that's the right answer. There's no, is it beautiful, not beautiful? If you're born healthy, that is the correct answer of the combination of those two things together, coming together. It's perfectly ordered. And it's mathematics, and allows you then, because of the place, time you're born, etc., you're tuned in. You start playing with it, you start untuning yourself. So this represents, as I say, the human body, and also the blood within the human body. Now, this is a female, interesting enough, when we look at this symbol. And how do we know that? Is because this symbol here, the circle with the horizontal lines going across, represents the placenta. Yeah, so this small depiction here could, but men don't have placentas. So you understand what I'm saying? It denotes this could be female. Now, interesting enough, when we see here, we see there's with no placenta. So these are the subtleties that when we're looking at our doctrine, this is why I say, you may have time to read loads of different people's books, and feel free to do so. My point that I'm just saying is, master what the master is teaching. Because without that curiosity, let's say curiosity killed the cat, but without that curiosity, without that, oh, what, who, what, where, why, how, when, that's going to task the subconscious mind to have to find these answers. So if you put yourself in the position to allow Wu-Sabat to teach you, these mysteries they're not to be withheld from you if it's, you know what I mean, by way of the genetic agreement that you have, understood, you should be informed. It's only us that can make ourselves unworthy to receive it. It's your genetic agreement, it's your entitlement to know, entitlement to be informed. you put the necessary work in and put yourself in a position for Wu-Sabat to teach you. You don't learn Wu-Sabat. Wu-Sabat teaches you. Wu-Sabat will inform you. So we see that this depiction here of Ashtat, or who they call Isis, she's also holding what? The lotus flower. We see symbol of the Tet or Tahat symbol she's holding in her hand in the lotus. Interesting enough, when we see Hara depicted, or who they call Horus, we see him in this picture at least, in a lotus flower. So she famously, as I say, is oftentimes depicted in the mother and child roles, because her name, Ashtat or Arashtat, yes, it means throne, which we've explained it so much times before. But the 3 stages of life, tied to vigilance, etc. So this is the throne that a woman can sit on when she's breastfeeding a child. And so yes, you could look at it in one way that actually, because the Tet or Tahat represents the blood, and we know that the lotus flower, for example, is a symbol of regeneration. You understand? What is the process that regenerates the blood? You understand? In the woman. Well, you understand, which Patarak, the unclean issue, deals with that issue. Overstood is the menstrual cycle, isn't it? Menstrual cycle is a form of rejuvenation. But in the religious world, it made it unclean. Understood? The woman is unclean for 7 days. She got so on and so forth. Well, them time they didn't have sanitary towels, according to the story anyway. But they made it an unclean issue. Women should be isolated. Women should be here. She must be locked up for 7 days, so on and so forth. Yeah? Part of that unclean issue. Man and woman should go and seek that out. And to listen to it, because it deals with that precise thinking, whereas actually it's not an unclean issue. It's a natural process within nature. If a man's got a booger up his nose, we don't say, the man is unclean, he must be stay in his room for certain days until blah, blah, blah happens. No, we don't do that, because it's just, clean your nose, you understand? And then deal with it. The same way, in a woman's situation, she's going through certain changes, which are rejuvenation changes. The body's changing, it's transforming itself. And it's excreting, understood, impurities out the system. So this is a positive thing. So it's not a negative thing. So it should be looked at in the unclean way that they're describing it as. There's no such state in that regard. Of course, from a hygiene perspective, certain things need to be managed during that period. But that's just one of the natural process, like anything else. You understand? Like going to the toilet. Same, similar thing, and should be judged in the same way, if judged at all. So we see here that could be interpreted as that, or yes, we see her holding Hara or Horus, and the symbolism denoting that she obtained a secret word from Re, understood, and she passed it on to her what? She passed it on to her Sanan, her son, understood, and he was to keep the secret to the end of time. Yeah, so what makes somebody a Hara, yes, is not because they can move stars. You understand? What makes somebody a Hara is because they have the secret word. Yeah, which is your Messiah equivalent in their religions. They have the tone, the secret word. Talking about earlier. About infusing, you understand, those golden children with that knowledge. Yeah, and note that it's golden children, it's not golden child. There's more than one. Yeah, but they get the secret word, according to our story, or the symbolism of our story, it comes from the woman. Because the woman is still, like this menstrual cycle, is still in tune with what? The 4 phases of the moon. Yeah, so she's still lunar biological or cosmological biological or solar biological influences there. So when nature changes, she's going to change. she's in tune, and then she transforms her man. This is the process. Understood? So the lotus flower has been considered sacred in many different cultures. See, we're interested in what it means. Our cultures and different people in different places ascribe their own meaning to it. Understood? Now, there's confusion, or there can be confusion, between what is known as the lotus flower versus the water lily. Understood? And some of the confusion comes, and maybe good to you to take a picture or look up these terms here, Fei, if that's the right pronunciation, and the Lumbo family. So basically, the water lily and the white lotus are basically the same. Sorry, not white lotus. The lotus flower are basically both water flowers. Yeah, Sahara. You understand? So they're water flowers, effectively, and they're part of the same family. But now, I suppose, if you looked it up, they have now separated the lotus out into those separate plant or flower family. But this is where sometimes the confusion comes in, is because they were all under the same family. Yeah, that's right. Way to say it. They're all under the same family of flowers in terms of, and you have different species, isn't it, within the flowers. Now, the blue lotus obviously is associated, or it grows near the Blue Nile. You understand? So the Nile River is where you see the flowers. The Nelumbo family, or Nelumbo type of lotus, what makes it part of that family is because when you look more closely, you see this kind of there's like a pod in the middle with the seeds, you understand? And so when you see that type of configuration, at least for their classification, that means it's part of the Nelumbo family. Understand? That type of particular lotus. See that the blue lotus, or this aspect of the lotus family, doesn't share that same attribute or traits. Understood? Yeah. So you get different types of flowers, and the reason why they've, I suppose, been associated with certain types of culture is because those flowers grow in a certain part of the world. So the yellow lotus, for example, is associated with North America, understood, and different places around the world. They've developed, I suppose, different stories that are associated with the ocean movement. But why the lotus flower in particular is special to us is because if you consider it, opens up when the sun comes up, or appears to come up and start shining. Understood? It opens up, and then when the sun appears to set, understood, the petals and flowers, the leaves, they then close up. You understand? So it was considered as a water flower to be a symbol of resurrection. And to some, it was considered that the sun, actually, when it got to the Amun point, which is where it appears to set, it descended down into the waters and then resurrected, stood back up at night. So, we touched upon this in the last class. I asked a question about a cat. There's symbolism in studying the movement of these different flowers and their characteristics and behavior, and how that alludes then to life journey, and so things about us, ourselves, in terms of better understanding. So we're learning about ourselves through studying others, the nature of other life forms and things, and then that's where things become codified. So in getting into that mindset, you're interested in this kind of language of symbolism, which probably is why, again, encouraged male and females were encouraged to go down the path of the Masonic orders through the Ba'h Tarak, is because that is a language of symbolism. Yeah, so you learn the symbolism. We're not dealing with Euro Masonry, we're dealing with the real stuff of orders that were aligned and tied into changes, so fixed changes in our genome, where there are shifts like where a woman becomes a woman, she has her first menstrual cycle, or a man becomes a man, a boy becomes a man when he has his first wet dream, do you understand, or ejaculation. Now, they're not men and girls are not women in terms of how we would look at it in a tribal context or a societal context, but they are according to nature. And so certain orders were then set up around them to guide them through those particular stages. The European has taken a lot of these things that we had back then. You've got Boy Scouts, you've got Girl Scouts, etc., which are sort of baby, arguably Masonic orders. That same thing. When we hear the word Mason, we start, some people start jumping out the film. It's the devil's work. It's the devil's playground, blah, 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 because of how certain symbols have been misused. Do you understand? But the word Mason, remember, Ma, yeah, as in Tamare, Ma, you call your mother, it means water. Same words you say for your mother, you call her Ma, correct? Some people call it Mama. And son, sons of water. Sea men. That's the way they play the tricks with the language. They say what? That the belly button is called the what? Navel. So which navel is it? And you've got ships and ships that move on the water, and they call that navel. You understand what the navel is? Navel means that person was once attached to an umbilical cord, correct? And the master teacher pointed out the fact that, well, if everybody's in the image, according to what they teach in monotheistic religion, yeah, Adam was created in the image and after the likeness of God, correct? So the question is, if he's created in the image and after the likeness of God, yes, and he was the man, and every other man who's been born is created, and woman is created in the image and after the likeness of Adam, then the question is, where did Adam get his navel from? Because to have a navel implies, understand, that you had an umbilical cord that was connected to something or someone. Let's get right. Correct? So if he was created in the image and after likeness of God, yes, every man in his image and after his likeness, who was his navel connected to? He has a navel. Every man has a navel. And the question might be, well, who was God's navel connected to? Patriarch. You understand? Patriarch of monotheism. Who was God's navel connected to as well? So we see here all the games with the words, but it coming back to the same thing, or the same story being connected out of ancient Tamaray. Understood? Yeah? So we know that the white lotus you see on the screen, the other picture there, was connected to the Dravidian culture or Hindu culture. Understood? But we were dealing with the lotus flower or the water lily, understood, long before, you understand, the Dravidians ever sort of picked that side of things up. Understood? And as I say, firmly relates back to the woman as well. And so here we see the lotus flower, we see it as a symbol of resurrection and regeneration, but it firmly represents the woman. So you see the lotus flower here, you see the temple of Deborah, which is temple of Arashta or Isis, it's referred to as, and you see here being presented to the Houthi there, you understand? So it's many times you see it around the culture of the lotus flower. So plenty of importance in terms of our own iconography. So one name to stick in your mind, Pa Shashan Shalel Pa Nahal, so the lotus of the Nile. the Lotus of the Nile. That's what that translates as. Sashan Shalel Pa Nayal. The Lotus of the Nile, which is that blue lotus flower. Any questions?
Yes, somebody's just asking a question. Rahubat Zamalu, where can I get a copy of the Om chant?
Good question. I'm not sure at the moment. That's a good question. I'll have to find out. You understand? You could try a local store up whether they've got the Om CDs from back in the day. I'm not sure. So yeah, I'll have to find out. I'll have to try and find out. But maybe check your local Wasl Egypt store. Maybe they do. They've got a CD or the old CDs where that was on, where it featured upon. They've got some of the old prayer ones, but they're rare. But I'm not sure at the moment, so I'd have to find that out. So I don't know that off the top of my head. Any other questions?
Yeah, yes, there are a few more questions. I thought the other people were going to go through them. Right, so let me just scroll back up. There is a few questions. Right. Hanel is asked, the book, or he's answered the question for someone else. I think he says, the book is The Secret of the Tones and Maf Guzet, Elixir of Life. It's the tones. I think he was answering somebody. He just posted that in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate that. That wasn't what I was thinking of. It was tone. It was tone A. Barterax, tone A. In fact, while you're doing that, let me just try and find it. 1 second. Yeah. Just 1 second. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. I like to follow that question up before you start. Hanil also posted the book pages 3 and 4, and then he's also said how to align the body. So he's finding that in that book. Okay,
no problem. Yeah, so it could be repeated. So the book, so that's fine. So appreciate that reference, Total Tack, for that. Yeah, the part of track I was referring to was Our Tones, Wavelength 8. Yeah, that was what I was referring to. But if it's in math, because that's what Master Secrets, that's great. So I appreciate the 2 references there. You can quote that. But part of rack, Our Tones, Wavelength 8.
Right. We have. Let me just read this before I voice it. Right. I'll start from reverse. It says that your voice tends to falter and drops when you drop the jewels. I think you have to watch the mic in and out thing. Yeah, it's still dropping in and out.
Okay.
And
All right, Habab, that's on you to get that piece of equipment that we need to try then. I don't know why it's doing that. But go ahead.
Right. Is Atifet Neri has asked, is the blue lotus rare?
Not to my knowledge, no, it's not. It's not a rare plant, no, or flower.
And Judith has asked, so what does it mean that the lotus flower is being offered to Jahuti?
In that context, good question. I don't know. So I'm going to say I don't know. I'm going to guess on that one. That's a look up. I'll ask that question. So that's a one to look up and come back to you on that, Judith. Yeah.
There are no further questions.
Okay. Right. So we've got Pa Sashan Shalel Pa Nayal, and now we've got another one. It's another lotus called the Lotus of Life, which some may be familiar with, some may not be. So this is another type of lotus that has mystery surrounding it, understood, and is basically dealt with in the book called the Gospel of Yaanuwn on the Sacred Femi-nine. Yeah, that's the proper title, but people know it's the Lotus of Life. Yes, and so here we see again the lotus flower of a different type, yeah, with pink leaves here, which we're going to find out for good reason for what it relates to. So this lotus flower that we're making reference to, or the Lotus of Life, is a symbolic name for the sexual organ referred to as the vagina, and it's very complex set of parts to it that holds the mysteries to female pleasure, which importantly is but it's an important aspect of liberty in females that, in particular, monotheistic religion, if you really analyze a lot of the stories, wanted to downplay not only woman's sexuality, but her ability to experience pleasure. This is why we have, heinous kind of practices like female circumcision, which basically is a process of cutting off the clitoris so the woman can't experience pleasure. Absurd. Again, through religion, you see the punk ass, excuse me, I shouldn't even swear, but the punk Abraham, when the Pharaoh approached, he was afraid that the Pharaoh was going to take his wife because she was considered to be beautiful or whatever. So he put her in a box. Yeah, and so these are the people that we hold up with such great esteem. So he put her in a box so that the Pharaoh couldn't see it, like some people go on when black men come around. You understand? I think they'd want to put their woman in a box, but that's how it is. So in God had to say, Abraham, you can't do that. You can't do that, mate. You need to put her in a veil. Understood? So this is more appropriate. So whatever extraterrestrials he was in touch with told him, no, you can't put her in a box. That's dumb. You need to put her in a veil. But it was all based out of fear and intimidation. Understood? So these are the characteristics, the root characteristics why certain things came in and were changed, which obviously God couldn't control, otherwise he would have sorted it out beforehand. Why didn't he just change it so that men don't have lust in their hearts, or you don't have those issues? These things existed and obviously were outside of this so-called supreme being of the Bible's control, because stupid things had to be introduced in order to protect it. The point being made is, all of that aside, is that there's a theme throughout those religions which has, again, made sex, I suppose, appear in some instances maybe even shameful, or, as I say, has denied Sacred Femi-nine access to those sexual pleasures, which are part of the sexual process. I've never had a baby, but I have seen my missus have a baby at the time. And the fact of the matter is, you probably wouldn't want to go through that again. So they were smart enough to put the pleasure principle in the sexual process, which keeps people coming back around to want to produce children. Understood? So, because in actuality, the male to female process, as you read in Holy Tablets in the 5th chapter, you understand, is the way we do it today with male split out from female is our form of artificial insemination. Understood? Because the process before took place inside of the females, as hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites. Understood? Or hermaphrodites. Took place there where she was able to fertilize her own eggs. We'll get into that in a bit. But that process took place inside. So when it was separated out, where the male principle was put inside of a physical being as the XY principle, now the member, you understand, or the phallus of the man, that is artificial insemination. You're just dealing with the fact that you're dealing with beings who are master geneticists and have a higher form of technology than what people are dealing with today, where they have what they call in vitro fertilization, in the same, or babies in test tubes and so on and so forth. You understood? Because they're able to program, our ancestors were able to program at a DNA or genetic level. Understood? Yeah, using nature. But the process itself is still artificial in that context, which is why, as I say, when the sperm is fired into the woman's, ejaculate into the woman's vagina, that's why so many are needed, because the woman's immune system is going to attack, to take out the sperms. There's a lot of cannon fodder, as they say, or a lot of sperm are used to protect the one that has the star of life. Understood? Yes. So this flower, or symbolism for the woman's sexual parts, is really important, because there's a science to sex and there's an art to sex. Understood? The science to sex is that sexual power opens the person up, both male and female, allowing them to connect with the heavens. Now, if men took more time, I don't know if they do or don't, but if they did, the stereotype is to fall asleep after sex. That's the monotype. Stereotype is 2. Monotype is to fall asleep after sex. If men stayed awake after they orgasm, they will find that they spiritually are very aware, you understand? And, maybe certain questions they may ask themselves, they may receive the answers for, because they're open, which is why it's important to maintain very strict hygienic practices, etc., around the sexual act, because there are elemental forces waiting to feed off of that energy. Understood? Yes, you have to keep certain things clean, as you read about, or we're going to read about a bit later. So, but if we stay awake, you understand, we're in tune with you understand, interdimensionally tuned, we're receiving maybe more information in maybe a succinct or more acute way, where certain questions being answered. We're going to contemplate, boom, who we are, certain things about the universe, and receive those answers because we're aware. And the woman does the same thing. You understand? When she's having an orgasm or post-orgasm, will feel, you understand, very much alive. Senses are, more heightened. You understand? And much more aware. But the issue is that most women have never experienced an orgasm, even to know what it is. And most men don't understand the female anatomy to be able to unlock the orgasm. Now, if you haven't had an orgasm as a woman, you're not a woman in one sense. You're not complete. So it's an important part of our culture that we need to unlock in the right kind of ways, because you can go down certain paths where it's the wrong way. Understood? And it's the wrong type of teachings. I see a lot of these podcasts and different things where people are talking about, and I'm not here to judge what's in people's bedrooms. That's one of the things. We stay out of people's bedrooms. 2 consenting adults, whatever, as long as the 2 agree to it, you understand? There's no surprises, blah, 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 blah. What takes place in their bedroom is what takes place in their bedroom. But things like choking and these types of activities or whatever, sometimes you got to step back and think, well, where did it come from? Because 1 degree the wrong way, 1 degree of pressure in the wrong way, the person's going to end up dead. You understand? Whereas certain practices in the bedroom, it doesn't matter how, to some degree, intense it gets, you're not going to kill the person. Do you understand? So there's a certain road, if you like, you want to call it the 9 road versus the 6 road, where people are going down a certain road trying to unlock certain practices, but the result can be highly negative. Even to the point, I think in the UK, for example, they've changed the laws where people who are doing certain experiments around these things can't get away because people end up dead, in certain instances, and then claim, hey, that's just the way we used to get down in the bedroom and done this particular act, and then someone's ended up dead on the other side of it. So that's not a road that we want to go down in unlocking some of the esoteric powers associated with the sexual act. Understood? That's not what the Min priesthood dealt with. You understand? So you got to think, who invented that? Where did it come from? Because certain people, let's say, who could not raise the apron. Yes, if you was a man, you could raise the apron. And you see some of the pharaohs standing. I'm one famous picture of him standing. Yeah, his apron is raised. There's certain people on the planet who could not raise the apron. They had a lack of salt in their body. In particular, understood? Yeah, but you know our body's all based upon electrical impulses, electrical energy being generated within. Understood? Very important part of the birthing process. They lack salt in their body. They couldn't get it up. Understood? And so constantly having to add different things into the mix to get it up. Yeah, if you got Wealth, Sex and Death, that lecture and tape by the master teacher, remember, they like to see us on the beach with our clothes partly off, and that's what gets them aroused, seeing us. You see men on the basketball court and different things of that. Yeah, it gets them hype. Where we didn't need that. We just need to see the shape of the Sacred Femi-nine, and that's enough. That's what we was attuned to do, and vice versa. Or maybe if the man does some work around the place, then that may be what excites things. Do you understand? So there's a relationship between work and reward of how men and women were to relate to each other. Just like, for example, when a person does exercise, the brain releases dopamine, correct? As a reward for the work. Yeah, and in ancient times, remember, even women used to take men's energy, which was negative, and turn it positive. She doesn't do that again today. Let's get back to that energy. But remember, she was the one, the cookie, or you understand, or the reward as the man being able to enter into the sacred garden or enter into heaven on earth, understood, was the women were to use that energy by making the man work, because sex makes you lazy. Yeah, so for him to, in order to get into heaven, hey, the garden needs doing, such and such needs fixing, bring blah 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 into, needs to be earning, needs to be working, boom 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 boom. So to drive the man as a force to make him achieve and be successful. But if he gets it too easy, he become lazy. Understood? And this is a situation or we're having today where this argument is because nobody really understands their own nature in the context of natural rules, isn't it? Well, who's got to drive this and have that, and blah, 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 and blah, 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 before he can take me out? Who's paying for the date? All these silly arguments. But it's because of the lack or the ignorance of knowledge, not only of who we are, but the culture that should sit around it and what drives it. Yeah, and the importance of understanding the circle and the square. The square, 360 degrees, in the sand, represents the male, and the circle is 360 degrees and represents the female. Yeah, but equal, but they're not the same, at least on the physical plane. Equal in quantity, but they're not the same. A man is greater in a woman than what he does. A woman is greater than a man in what she does. And the rise of the woman is not necessarily in the Sabian sense of sacred masculine, sacred feminine, is not rise of the female and fall of the male. It's rise of the sacred feminine and implement the man, change your ways and become sacred masculines. Understood? So part of this, or us now understanding our story, which is a matriarchal story, or starts with a matriarchal story, is understanding or unlocking the mysteries of this lotus of life flower, which is different for every woman. Understood. So let's work through this now. Any questions before I move on?
Yes.
There's a question from, it looks like Nerua Anuket, and the question is, what does the cobra snake represent on the headdress?
It can represent different things, but in that context, it represents the third eye.
There's another question from Marcus, and the question is: does the event Arashtat Fasar tie in, and does the Wenet hair tie into this story?
Read that question again. I'm not sure if I fully understand.
I don't know whether there is a bit of a typo there. It says, does the event Arashtat Fasar tie in, and does the Wenet hair tie into this story? I'm not quite sure on the...
You say Wenet, how's that spelling?
Wenet. I've never seen that word before.
And he said hair after it.
Yeah, Hare.
I'm not sure what that second bit is. If he said Wabar hair, so if you could just clarify, maybe then I can sort of help out.
Okay. There's another question.
That one, so I'm not sure.
There's another question from Judy. So humans use artificial insemination. How did animals come to have and use sex organs? They are not containing both sexual organs.
So, well, that's not quite true, Judith. Some do. So you think about aphids, hammerhead sharks, the Komodo dragon. So some are asexual or F-sexual in that regard. So when we talk about animals having sex or being separated out, remember their sexual proclivity is tied into the seasons, whereas human beings are not. So even then, even that separation of it being outside still makes it artificial if the female originally, or that the phylogenetic tree of that life form started off in an F-sexual fashion. Yeah, because your immune system, the difference between if you were to have a baby, for example, as a woman, a woman had a baby, when a woman is producing a child F-sexually, yeah, feminine sexually, your body, because the seminal fluid is from your own body, your immune system doesn't see it as foreign. Yeah, so that's what we mean by artificial, because when the man now inserts his member into the woman, because the min or the manam is a delivery device. That's what it is. It's a mechanism, a delivery mechanism, in order to put the sperm into the woman. It's been separated out. So the woman's immune system fights against that sperm because it doesn't have its genetic markers. So in the design, they had to understand that, i.e. why you have the amniotic amniotic sac, or the sac that protects the baby, basically, which is really a form of an egg, is protecting the baby from the woman's immune system. Do you understand? And there's a whole heap of stories, remember, that arise out of in movies and the media that play out that same story. You understand? The battle of the sperm, I say battle, but the battle of the sperm to the ovum. Do you understand what I'm saying? You see it. The film Matrix, for example, is one of those. Yeah? The word matrix means womb. Right? And if you look at it, even in their story, the lead person, Neo, interesting enough, yes, he was being aided by a black woman in the movie, do you understand, who was giving him all of the information how to bypass the system, isn't it? But she was part of the same system. Do you understand? I can't remember. She was Oracle, that was her name. The Oracle, I haven't seen the movie for a while. But she was helping Neo, understood, to overcome or defeat the same system. Understand? So when you really understand what's going on, because the system is the woman's immune system. So she's putting a mechanism in place, yeah, by way of love, to protect her child from her own immune system. So if that was all naturally occurring in that way, you wouldn't have to have those protections, because it would have, the markers would match what the woman already has, so it wouldn't trigger the immune system. In this case, it doesn't do that. So she has to protect the child from herself. Understand? This is the amazing thing about, children being born, the high level of complexity that takes place around that. So we separated out, remember, as part of what? Project 24, into two separate strands, eventually to become, as I say, Sacred Masculine and Sacred Femi-nine, understand, as part of that process. Any other questions?
Yes. There's another question from Atifet. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correct. Why do men get lazy after being sexually satisfied? Should tribal women stop having sex with their men to guide and motivate them in freeing our master teacher?
I mean, yeah, that'd be a good use of the power, I suppose. Don't have to be specifically for that, but I suppose it's a good use of the power. Well, men are weakened physically when they ejaculate, and women are weakened by DNA when they have sex. So the two processes, or sex, affects us slightly differently. Do you understand? And so in that regard, I mean, it doesn't have to be for that, but it can be for that, but for various reasons. Not necessarily so I suppose some of the higher sciences of men and women working together in the positive way of how they use sex is to understand those rules and then to work in a way that can enhance. So a woman and man, for example, can work together. So maybe the man doesn't ejaculate each time that he has sex. You understand? So she's helping him, and they both are working together to control, you understand, their waters. You understand? So rather than ejaculate, he can ejaculate. So the energy, rather than going external and say loses power, that same energy without release of the fluids can then go in the other direction to rejuvenate the body. So there are certain processes where the male and female should work together, which is the other side of it, to use sexual positions and the process or whatever to enhance each other, energize each other. Because in a certain sense, we both end up losing. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the context of the sexual process. Do you understand? We're losing something from ourselves that is not necessarily replaced in that regard. So we're just managing the energy loss, which takes a few days in the context of a man to about 72 hours or so, in order for him to be sort of rejuvenated back again. But there's certain fluid that he loses from the brain, which is not replaced. But in the context of the female, for example, remember, because you are the representation of that blackness, which we're going to get into probably part 2 now, and also you consider the soil. Once the man obviously puts his semen into you, you're going to retain that genetic memory of his semen, and that can last up to 9 years. You understand? So this is the issue, isn't it? Is that there's a loss there because of the way we're using the power, not because of the power itself. Do you understand? So the culture doesn't reflect the rules of nature in the best way. It's not optimizing us in the way the rules of nature work. So men can't continue to use women as a dumping ground for their lust, because you're destroying the purity of the lineage. Understood? By if you're using it as a dumping ground. There's some situations where a man, I suppose, shouldn't go into with no knowledge, you understand, of the sexual process, but you understand the price that's being paid is too heavy, isn't it? The price that's being paid is too heavy. Maybe a woman's got up to 4 chances before the accumulation of that semen, before the body's had the opportunity to rid itself of any foreign DNA, understood, can cause a woman to lose her connection or her soul, because those multiple genes and personalities can start to influence her decision making. And so you lose your connection in that context. So if we think about having 4 partners, for example, throughout a lifetime, it's not a lot of partners. In the West, anyway, it's not a lot of partners. Whatever the case may be, or the body count is what the youths say today, isn't it? That's not a lot of partners. But according to nature's rules, it's a lot of partners. You understand? If they're spaced a certain period together, you understand, without waiting for that extraction period of the DNA or the excretion period of the DNA. So it's unfortunately or fortunately, in the right environment, those behaviors wouldn't go on in the way they do. In the West, it happens without care or regard to not only the individual, but as importantly, towards the race. So yes, in one sense, I'm not going to use the word good woman, but a woman has to learn how to direct her man towards success. And a man has to respond accordingly. Respect the fact, not in any kind of disrespectful way, he's still a man, but he has to learn to respect that fact that, as you heard, they're deity of the household. Now, today in modern times, people are carrying old, maybe biblical or monotheistic thinking into the household. And so this is why it's important to have that kind of parterac, which sets out maybe how the household should work, because it obviously causes some contention. A man might say, well, if the woman doesn't cook and and do something clean and all that kind of stuff, then they're not a good wife, or whatever the case may be. But as you know, in this doctrine, it sets out, I think it's in the Sacred Femi-nine and maybe Women on Planet Earth, whatever, that the woman was never created to be man's helpmate. That's a biblical and monotheistic concept. She was never supposed to be a slave to a man. That's not her role, understood? She's her own being, entity, and the progenitor of life here on the planet Earth. That's who she is, supreme being. She's not man's helpmate. She was here before man. You understand? The difference is that, as I say, she gave up when she stopped fertilizing her own eggs, and she fell in love with her own creation. She then had to rely on the man to fertilize her own eggs, so then therefore made herself subservient to him. So in order to get back to that position again, there's certain things that are useful for us in the Pater guidance to start now, at least in these first generations who are receiving it, to start deploying it. So, for example, if a man is working and the woman is not working in the household or whatever, then yes, the woman should take care of the house, look after the kids, whatever the case may be, clean, do those necessary things. If the woman is working and the man is not working, then the man should clean around the house and cook and do those necessary things around the household. If both are working, then you need to work out a system where both are doing it. You understand? So there isn't no inherent thing, hey, woman is supposed to do da-da-da-da, when it comes to those kind of household duties. You understand? And if you really want to ball out, then you need to get some help around the house. But you understand, give somebody a job or employ somebody, whatever the case may be. But that's how it should work. Now, obviously, there's certain things, women raising children, that nature has obviously connected her to do, excuse me, and we need to understand those rules again. So, for example, when a woman has a child, for example, there is a certain amount of time that the child needs to spend with their mother, in the sense, and with their parents per se. In fact, it is described or stated within our doctrine that basically no one should even touch, no other person should even hold the child. You understand? For optimum liberty, no other person should hold the child, because human beings have germs. You understand? Until the baby's immune system is strong enough to be around other people, and people are carrying different energies. So imagine not allowing anybody other than the parents to hold that child, you understand, for almost the first 2 years of its life. It'd be very difficult to do that. But in the right environment, with the right culture, people understanding, knowing what you're seeking to produce in terms of producing supreme beings, that will be acceptable, do you understand, culturally, in the right environment, do you understand? And men understanding, for example, that for a woman, when she had a child, her body takes 2 years to revert back to its normal state. You understand? So, you know, a lot of men through lust or whatever be trying to get back into the garden. Yeah, is it all right now? You know, within 4 weeks, you understand? A few weeks, yeah, how's it feeling now? Boom, boom, boom. And trying to get back in. And a lot of relationships die out in those early parts because of various different reasons of not getting on. But the woman's not herself, having held this large other person in them for that amount of time, her body significantly changes. It takes 2 years, for it to get back to being a normal self again. So men have to also understand how much sexual control and discipline they need to have during that period. You understand? So there are a number of things that once you understand the rules, then you augment your culture to say optimize with the best effects with the least adverse results. You understand? So yes, maybe if holding back sex gets the master free, then yeah, I suppose it's a good approach for Sacred Femi-nine to take. Any other questions?
Yes. Marcus has rewritten his earlier question, and the question is, what is the event of Arashtat Fasar about, and how does it tie into the Sacred Femi-nine?
So basically, the event is that at that particular time, women, it was a male-dominated environment or world, so to speak. So women were not allowed to access some of the secrets that were held in these male orders. Understood? So Ashtat took part of her saliva. She took part of Reye's saliva. So Reye was the head of that order, and she took part of Reye's saliva and mixed it in a formula or potion to create a poison, and delivered it in the form of a snake. Yes, that snake, she laid the snake on the path where Reye used to walk every morning or throughout the day. And he encountered this snake, and the snake bit him. And basically, that form of poison, he had certain knowledge, great amount of knowledge, herbs and various different things, he couldn't understand how this poison had affected him, because he didn't know that Ashtat had taken his own saliva, mixed with the poison, and that is what had him in this dependent position. So he was dying, couldn't figure out how to heal himself, and Ashtat came along and said, look, I'll heal you if you give me your secret name. Understood? And so in that bargaining, he didn't give her all of the name, but he gave her part of the secret name, the secret word. You understand that those males held, she gave him part of his name, but the condition was that she would keep it, you understand, for herself, but she agreed that she would do that, but if she handed it to her son would keep it until the end of time. So that was the deal that they ended up with. So her giving it to her son, Hara or Haru, in order, because she saw, well, men weren't running the world correctly, and she wanted to see a change. In giving it to her son was to keep it until the end of time. So that is what the story of Aset and Ray, or Arashtat and Reye, is about. There's obviously symbolism in that story. Now, you can read more about that, or the full story is in a book called Ancient Egypt and the Pharaohs, and there's a useful chapter in there to read about Ashtat and many other things as well, and her tie into the Sirius or Sirius star constellation, Wu-Sabat itself. A very important read, ties also into the Dogon of Mali, an important read, which we will explore. Not exploring those chapters, but exploring the female's role as part of this Master Secrets class that we're dealing with, Mother of Existence. Because, as we've said many times before in this class, remember, the woman is the bridge between the world we came from and the world we're in. Any other questions?
Yes. Marcus asked a question. Does the Wenet, W-E-N-E-T, or Wenut, W-E-N-U-T, tie in with the Sacred Femi-nine? And is this where the Easter Bunny comes from, as Wenet is known as a hare, not a bunny, Egyptian goddess?
Yes, indirectly, yes. Indirectly, yes. That'd be the answer to that. Indirectly.
Okay. There's a question from Anonymous. Does the menstrual blood neutralize rituals? If so, is that the reason why they are not allowed in temples in certain places of worship?
I can't answer that question without the details of what's being discussed there. I think sort of blood per se, or the release of that, is not, well, we don't use any kind of blood in any kind of rituals that we do. When you see blood being used in rituals of any kind, it's usually because the beings that they're trying to contact are of lower power. So therefore, the use of blood in that context is because of who they're trying to contact and who they're dealing with. When you're dealing with 9 ether beings and beings of a higher nature, if you think about it, you don't have to sacrifice anything to receive the warmth and the life-giving properties of the sun. The planet, for example, provides you with air to breathe, and the various other 4 elements are used in order to sustain life here. No one has to sacrifice anything. There's no blood let in, etc., etc. So whenever you see any blood used in any type of ritual, that is because the beings are of a lower nature and, as I say, of lower power. as we talked about earlier, we are connected to an inexhaustible form of energy in Ba'h B'ah. So there is no energy loss. Nature works in abundance, as we said earlier. 777,777 sperm to fertilize one, and only one is needed to fertilize the egg. So we always work in abundance to ensure the best chances, let's say, of getting the result achieved. So as I say, I'm not aware of any using ritual of blood in any ritual that we do. As I say, we wouldn't use it. You understand? Now there are some times where because of certain forces that are attracted to the energy within the blood or attracted to decay. So if you think about the woman extracting in that context, excreting impurities out of her system, understand there are some forces spiritually that may seek to be attracted to that and feed off of that. So in that context, it's for that reason. The same way if a man had a fresh cut on his hand or something of that nature, and there was blood let, there would be certain forces that would be attracted to that. So that person may not then lead a ritual or partake in a ritual for those reasons only, not because they have a period or because, understand, that's straight. It's because in that context, if you're opening yourself up in that particular way, or you're going to be more open than usual, then you can open yourself up to being housed by unwanted forces. So that would be the reason why you wouldn't participate, or understand, or the reason if you were on or off why you would participate, if you understand what I'm saying. So it's more for the person's protection or the protection of the ritual if they were leading it, for example. It is not for anything other than that. We don't use blood in that context in that way. Now, there are some things where blood is used or let to study the blood. So, for example, when where two people were wanting to come together, they would go to a wab or priest who would ask them to submit their blood, and they may study the way the cells interact with each other within the test tube or whatever device they were using, to see basically how compatible these individuals are. So depending on the volatility of the movement of the cells may determine, before they've even get connected sexually or, you understand, get to know each other, where things have gone too far and we get wasted lives. They'll look at how those cells interact, and then the priest/scientist would they be able to give a viewpoint to say how compatible they are based on how these cells interact with each other in the test tube. Any other questions?
Yes. There's a question from Julio. Doesn't the cobra snake that some of the overseers wore on their headdress symbolize wisdom, other than the spiritual eye or the third eye is open?
Well, that would help you to do that, wouldn't it? So if remember, wisdom or right wisdom is right knowledge applied at the right time. Do you understand? So obviously you having all of your eyes open, you understand, gives you your full faculties, isn't it? Because you're receiving information, you're seeing things maybe for how they are and not for what they appear to be. Understand? Because there's a lot of obviously trick knowledge, circumstances, and things of that nature around us. So having full faculties open is obviously better than not having it. Now, as I say, it means many different things. It has many different meanings attached to it, but that's one of the reasons why it's positioned in the place where it is. You understand? On the headdress. Yeah, because that's one of the things it symbolizes. Any other questions?
Yes. A question from Marcus. How did the female fall in love with her creation, and who was the first man she created? Where can we study about this story, please?
You need to read the Black Book Part 1. Yeah? Black Book Part 1. Yeah, so that's where that is dealt with. There are sacred records of Atumre, known as the Black Book. So that's where you can find that. And how did she fall in love? I'm not a woman, so, but yeah, I'm sure the Manam is a source of great pleasure. Yeah, so she fell in love with that process in the sense of producing children that way, of which she created. Yeah. What was the name of the first man? Well, and the first point in anything is known as Atum, isn't it?
Right. We have another question from Atifet. Regarding souls, why is it that the Nagarnad woman soul is around her, not in her, and the Nagarnad man soul is in him, and the Caucasian woman soul, I think, Menthu said, is wandering the earth? I'm not sure. Don't quote me. And the Caucasian man's soul is in the underworld. He has no soul. But the black woman soul is in her, like our black men soul is in him. Why is this? How can the black woman get her soul back inside herself?
It would be useful if you knew what book you were quoting from and the verses, so I could be clear on exactly what's being said. Otherwise, my answer might not be quite right. So you need to look at the words, because remember, you're talking about two souls there, isn't it? So the Ba'ah soul, both have it irrespective. She doesn't get the Ba'ah soul from her man. Remember, we just read in, the Prism, yes, that the Ba'ah was donated from, they get that from their ancestors linked to their higher etheric ancestors, yeah, their Muslafu or Salafu ancestors linked to Panatharu. Now, when it comes to the Rawuh soul, which is the breath, understood, that in the process of how it's done today, you understand what I'm saying? Because she's getting that part from the sperm. Now, obviously, if she was produced by way of parthenogenesis or virgin birth, she'd get that from her mother solely, through the Bartholin gland, which are two glands either side of the vaginal orifice, and they secrete a seminal type fluid. Remember, the process is that the sperm, before it's released, or that particular one carrying the star of life, makes its way up the spiral column to the molar chakra and seemingly transforms etherically to be able to move in a certain position, and then it receives that spark of life at the molar chakra at the top of the head, and that is the one that, makes it out of the 777 odd million sperm to the egg, in a normal birth. So she gets that soul, the Rawuh soul, from the man in that context, obviously, because that's how the child gets it, not the woman who's living. The child, that's how the child gets it, because it's donated, part of that process, which is the soul that we're talking about in the solar plexus, which gives us life, isn't it, in terms of breathing, i.e. infilling those out through the mouth. So life is a burning process, and that point is started when that sperm and ovum come together. So that's the Rawuh soul being talked about. But obviously, if a woman is capable of fertilizing her own eggs by way of parthenogenesis, then she must have that ability also innate within her, just not using it. So when if he's saying, well, the soul gets it from outside, is because the woman is breathing in, through her nose, you understand, and taking in the air and processing it inside of her. You understand? And so that is one way in which it becomes soul on the outside, and then when it comes inside the body, it becomes spirit. Through the breath. The Rawu soul is referred to as the Rawu, which translates as soul.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have another question from Anonymous. Why are menstruating women not allowed in temples and places of worship?
I can't speak for, you'd have to say what religion it is and what culture and what it relates to, because different people have different rules. But there's a good part of that called the unclean issue. It doesn't apply to us. We don't treat women in that context in that way. So we don't see it as an unclean issue. As I said earlier, some rituals, because of the nature of blood, yes, some forces, elemental beings, are attracted to the forces contained within blood in an open state. Remember, when blood is inside the body, it's protected by the person's first line of defense, which is their skin. And then there are other things which are designed to protect the body from, attack in many different types of ways. Understood? So in some rituals, as I said previously, open blood or access to open blood may mean that at that particular point, the woman can't lead the ritual or participate in a certain ritual because of the potential of interference into that ritual by lower entity beings. But it'll be the same as, I say, as for a man had a cut on his body or whatever the case may be. I cannot speak for, as a general rule, monotheistic religion has introduced that the uncleanliness of women in that state. We don't see it as unclean. It's just a natural process. Say somebody going to the toilet, whatever the case may be. It's just a natural process. We don't say, obviously, if you're unclean because if you haven't cleaned yourself properly or washed yourself properly from being on the toilet, then that's a separate thing. But you don't say because we go to the toilet that we're always in an unclean state. So that's not how it works. So that doesn't apply in Sabian culture. There's a part of that called the unclean issue. I would urge you to seek out that particular book or tape, or recording, I should say, what a recording is out, but an audio recording, and then that will give you some more information on that particular subject. Any other questions?
Yes, there's another question from Marcus. Was there more than one reason for the masculines raising the apron? If so, would you explain, please?
No, it's just a demonstration of sexual power. Now, obviously, prior to certain Europeans coming around, you didn't have to wear an apron because we wasn't really looking at each other like that. Obviously, certain people came around who had a little bit of sugar in their sandals, and so therefore they were looking a bit too hard. So it was necessary for us to cover up. If you look at some of the more, what they call primitive societies or first world people, you know what I mean? Lust is not, the human form is not seen in the same way. You understand? Really, our skin is our clothes. You understand? And this is how we're able to maximize the energy from the sun if we're in the right environments, by not having clothes or having at least certain parts of our body exposed, so we can draw as much energy from the sun as is allowable. Understood? You understand? So that's why it's the color in the way it is to be able to absorb these sun rays. So we had to cover up when certain people started to come around. You understand? Because they were watching what they shouldn't be watching. Any other questions?
No, further questions entered. No.
All right. Okay. I think that's a good place to stop there. So let's have a think about what we're going to step into next. We're going to explain the Lotus of life and get into that subject a little bit, and then let's say get into some of the symbolism. That's why we're trying to open up your eyes with the Safaf. Get into some of the deeper symbolism around some of these letters, some things that have always been in front of us, but we didn't necessarily think about the hidden meaning of what it related to. Do you understand? And I say, broadly goes back to all the same type of story and things. We need to get into that, get into a little bit of the numbers and Sabbatic numbers and some of the figures around that, and look at some of the hidden mysteries and symbolism, maybe things again we look at for didn't really see. But as I say, opening up the mind's eye will help you to see a bit more clearly in terms of the master releasing some of these secrets. That's why they're called master secrets, because you're now getting those secreted to you, understood, which is helping to transform you. So we're back again in 2 weeks' time. The next class is going to be on. Just click on there. So it'll be the 3rd of April, so 2 weeks' time. We'll seek to get these out on our YouTube channel so people can just go over maybe some of the subjects that we discussed today in preparation for that. The books that we're dealing with today for your local the Egypt store, say The Mother, Circle of Existence, Master Secrets, and Proof, a little bit of Birth of Religion as well, Actual Facts. So those are some of the ones which are maybe of interest in some of the subjects that we've covered today. But maybe we'll put a full list once the series is over so people can reference them accordingly. Okay, appreciate all the questions. Really good interaction. Please keep it coming. Keeps us on our toes, and it makes sure it shows that people are tuned in. We've got a great class coming for part 2, so by all means look out for the reminder emails, let people know, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time, ready for part 2 of Mother of Existence. Take care, everybody. Wadu to the Sabian family and all those who joined us today. Not of that. Wish you all the best. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay, take care all, and give care as well.